Hey there, you cute cadets! Agent Jackrabbit here, writing a new SCP article. Please cover your ears and await further instructions.
Hello and welcome back to Discovering SCP. Today we will be discovering SCP, but in a different way. We'll be discovering an SCP that has yet to exist.
It will be brought into this world live. No, but we do have a guest.
This is pre-recorded.
This is not live. This is pre-recorded. I lied to you, but I did kidnap a guest for this episode. If they would like to reveal themselves, let me just remove the gag real quick. Hang on.
It's me, a healthy human female.
Oh my god!
Oh
God! I really wish I hadn't gone with the kidnapping angle now.
With gusto. Come on, awooga.
I did. Awooga. That's from my spouse, Corgo.
Your
back on Twitter.
Your spouse. That was for you, Corgo. Yes. It's me. It's Jackrabbit. Hi.
Yes, welcome. Thank you for agreeing to come on, Jackrabbit.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. If we had a drinking game of how many times I'm gonna thank you guys for having me on here, like we would be dead in like 15 minutes.
I do have some UV blue on me if we need to drink to get through this.
I am so thrilled to be here, you guys. Thank you. Really, this is just so exciting. Even though I have been pretty public about how nervous I am, I'm like nervous and excited because this is what I've wanted to do for a while, to talk to authors, and this is a great opportunity. So thank you.
And once you do it, once you write for the first time and you learn how to do, like, okay, here's the basic quote blocking for denims, here's the structure, here's how to do an author thank you post, yada yada, you can just pump these things out like it's nothing, because anyone who tells you writing an SCP is hard as a liar. Exactly. It's really not. Like, writing a good SCP...
Even I can do it.
Writing a good SCP is hard, but writing an SCP and getting it on the wiki is, like, so easy. Everyone can and should do it.
I see some people, like, off-site, people who seem to think there's, like, a committee that has to
approve it. Exactly! I was talking about that with Jackrabbit the other day. There's, like, a feeling off-site where there's, like, some sort of, like, elite group that writes for the wiki. Yeah, or like set authors, and it's like they feel uncomfortable when you start talking about like writers and who made stuff. And it's like, no, literally anyone can do this.
Yeah. I am, and I've made a few notes of just kind of, some of those misconceptions that I've heard other people having that, maybe we can kind of address as we go, and you guys can debunk that.
Thanks for doing our content for us, by the way. I appreciate that. So I didn't have to bring anything.
Yeah, I probably came over prepared, but
Yes.
Well.
So I would like to clarify a few things for this episode before we get into the meat and potatoes, so to speak, for our viewers.
Oh,
so, as you know, a similar concept... Yummy? So a similar concept happened on your cast, but it was controversial. But we have laid out some provisions so that we can't get disc threaded or yelled at, okay? So provision number 1 is, Jackrabbit knew this was coming. She's prepped an actual article that she wants to write, her concept. She has the whole thing plotted out in like a concept web, everything ready to go, right?
Yeah, for the most part.
We didn't like thrust you into this. We weren't like, now write! With a prompt or whatever.
I'm not doing Milk Jesus 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Yes. Second, this episode will be going up a week or close to a week after she uploads it to the wiki, so it will survive or die on its own merit with no involvement from our fan base whatsoever. Just so we're making that clear, Disc Committee.
In fact, you're all forbidden to even read it.
Yes. And then I had another point, but I forgot what it was. Sorry, I got too into the first 2 points.
I think it's really going to be like mentioning. So we'll have this episode up on Spotify. For the best experience, though, we would recommend watching on YouTube.
Yes.
There will be a visual element.
That was the third point. Thank you. For those who are unaware, like on Spotify right now, I am recording in OBS. There's a visual element. We have a Google Doc open for Jackrabbit to write on while we help crit or just like shoot the shit while she's writing, etc. But yeah, enough stalling.
Anomalous, please encode the video as audio blips.
No! He has to do it as like a... What are those things where you... Subliminal messages? So
just overpowering the whole thing.
Yeah. Oh, I wouldn't know anything about subliminal messages in content. Not at all.
Oh, flushed emoji? But yes, the first thing I will teach you is...
Is that the proper response to subliminal content?
Here's the first thing we'll teach you as experienced authors. Lesson 1 when you write, You're gonna refer to your
articles, so losing experienced author.
You're gonna continue writing. You're gonna write like your article, and you're gonna call it SCP XXXX. So then, when the whole thing's finished and you find a number you can use, you can go Control F SCP XXXX and then just replace it with the number.
You can pretty much use anything. I mainly use XXX because it's sort of
yeah,
it's easiest.
Yeah, that's just the standard. You can use whatever as a placeholder as long as it's like something that won't pop up in a word elsewhere.
Gotcha.
All
Cool,
right.
cool. Well, then I will say, kind of on my end, you know, I've made a lot of new SCP author friends, and I feel like this kind of ties into the disclaimers that you were just saying, Darnell. That to the few that knew ahead of time that I was going to be coming on here and doing this, obviously I had a lot of people offering like, oh, what's your idea? Like, how can I help? I'll offer crit. I turned down everything. I was like, I want to go into this like as blind as possible.
Yes.
So really try and kind of create just like brand new SCP writers experience on this. So we'll see what happens. But okay, so how do you guys want to do this? Because I figured, I was like, well, I don't know if I should kind of give like a brief intro on just kind of like myself and like how I even got here, or like what's even going
go
on.
ahead. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your TikTok, and what your idea is before you start writing.
Yeah, well, because it
it
definitely all ties into each other, you know. Well, what I think is crazy is that Darnell, you and I discovered SCP at the exact same time. Yes,
that was March 2020, right?
Right when we were all going into lockdown for the first time, and so, man, I just think that that's so crazy. Like to think that the different paths that we took brought us to this exact moment, you know.
Oh my gosh. Dude, Dune, hearing Dune started in March 2020 really surprised me.
Because March in my head is like a 3 years, guy.
Yeah, I thought Dune was like a much bigger part of the wiki with like how well. I guess it was because he must have wrote not Hog Slice, Death Knife, and it must have like really blown up and made him more well known in the community. Because of that and like the influence he already had, I assumed he was an old head like Tanhoney. I didn't realize he was a new blood.
I'm like fucking Dr. Manhattan. I can't keep track of time anymore.
Well, I only started posting content and even interacting with the community publicly in October of this year.
Oh,
and
wow.
So a lot of people thought that I had been around for a really long time, just because, you know, I kind of came out of the gate swinging. But what they hadn't realized is that I had just really been crafting a lot of this behind the scenes for quite some time. So I discovered SCP in March of 2020, like a lot of people did, just as most of us were going into lockdown for the first time. I don't know if you guys are kind of familiar with my story. There's like some mentions of some mental health issues, but it has a happy ending, I swear. So I was incredibly depressed in March of 2020, and you know, didn't obviously exacerbated by just everything that we were all going through. You know, I'm already a pretty tiny person, but in March of 2020, I was about 30 pounds lighter than I am right now. In the pictures that you see of me, I was incredibly small. I was just very like not taking care of myself. I just kind of losing the drive to take care of myself. And man, suddenly we go into lockdown and I can't even leave my house, you know, and I have no idea what's going on. And CP came into my life right exactly when I needed it. And, you know, when you're in lockdown, it goes from needing a reason to like, you know, go outside or get out of bed every single day to just like needing a reason to continue to like find curiosity, to continue to want to go from one day to the next. And that's what SCP became for me. I became just like so fascinated by the creativity, the community, just everything that everyone had collaborated and worked on together was inspiring to me in such a simple way. And oh crap, don't get emotional, Jackie. Whew. But it's true. Like that was what it became for me. You know, it started on SCP YouTube, just, you know, listening to people reading articles, becoming more intrigued and actually going to the wiki myself to read things. And I never had really any intention of becoming a content creator myself. But in March of this year, as I kind of realized that it had been a year since I had started down this rabbit hole, I was like, this isn't going anywhere, in my life. It's something I'm still really passionate about and interested in. And I was like, I think I want to do something with this. And that really pushed me to start taking better care of myself. I was like, well, if I'm going to present myself to this community that's helped me so much and has continued to make me interested and invested in existing, I want to
Mhm.
present myself in a healthy way. And so, yeah, not only did SCP just like inspire me to be curious and learn more, and feel connected, with the rest of the world in the loneliest of my life, it pushed me to take better care of myself and become a better version of myself. So that's why I love SCP so much, and that's why I'm so passionate about it. Is that it really really changed my life in a good way. So yeah, in March of this year is when I decided. I was like, I want to make something. I want to be something. I really didn't know what that was yet.
Mhm.
I have a background in performance,
Mhm.
like dancing, putting on productions, and so that's why I was kind of like, well, like since I discovered SCP on YouTube, I was like, I guess I'll try an audio visual type of format. And so I started just collecting a lot of different things. I picked a mobile task force that I wanted to place this character in. Started, just making a lot of notes about just what was interesting to me about SCP, what really stuck out to me, and eventually, gosh, like I said, in October of this year, I was like, well, I guess I'll kind of use TikTok as like my testing grounds for this. Like, I had no idea what I was doing. I didn't really watch TikToks. I knew of some people who were on there. Um, I just that's where I just started posting,
Mhm.
and it took off. It really really took off.
Yeah, no
Which
kidding. You're at
was
like
just
what? How many now?
so yeah, I've been on there for a little over 3 months, and I'm like at like 55K now, which is just that was just crazy. That kind of made me like freeze up a little bit. That was like a lot more eyes on me than I was
That's a big
anticipating.
number.
Like,
That's definitely more than 10.
that's more than 10. That's like more people than I could fit in, like a McDonald's. I'm just like, that's a lot of people.
10 is
Like, I'm
the limit
just,
for McDonald's. Not counting
yeah,
the what, 8
A lot of
workers at
people to
any given
McDonald's.
McDonald's.
right. Um, but all of that to say, and again, I apologize if I'm like super long-winded on this
No,
because
dude,
I
compared to
was,
Cactus, this
I,
is
No,
still short. You're
yeah,
good
we've
to
had
go.
Cactus on.
yeah,
Cactus has spoken for half an hour uninterrupted, so this is
Yeah.
fine.
No, well, the reason I just kind of bring this up and preface it is that, I was thinking, like, how am I going to introduce myself on here? Because it feels weird to introduce myself as an SCP TikToker.
Mhm.
Because I don't, that's, it's weird. That's just not totally what I consider myself to be,
You
even though
don't really
that's the
identify
platform where I've
yourself
been,
there yet because, like, that's what you were testing and it's still also new. I
I've,
totally get
I,
what you mean.
I was, yeah, well, it's the app where I upload my videos, but as far as the app functions and how like the algorithm works and the content that it encourages you to make, I never really got the hang of that. I don't currently do it, and with the direction I'm kind of going within the community, I don't know if I'll ever really get the hang of that.
Mm.
A fantastic example of like a successful SCP TikToker obviously would be like Dr. Sherman
Mhm.
Right.
of Site 42. He has like really struck a perfect balance of utilizing that algorithm for funny skits, open duets, and like SCP education. He's just absolutely nailing it on there. My videos are usually like a minute and a half to 2.5 minutes long.
Mhm.
And so I don't get a lot of like people just actually like literally are not able to share them or do a bunch of things with them. So that's been really flattering that it's popped up the way that it has, because that's shown me that okay, I've got something here. This testing ground is really working.
Right.
But the main focus that I've been trying to do on there is trying to mess around with reintroducing SCP basics in a new way. Because again, I still consider myself to be a pretty new fan.
Mhm.
But trying to hint at some deeper lore, like messing around with like internal SCP propaganda for people who are feeling disillusioned working for the Foundation. And this is going to be tying into what you guys are going to help me write.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that's why I'm like, I promise I have a point. I'm not just like
Has
going
the
on and on.
show mentioned you, by the way, like the plans he's got for the future?
I know that he definitely, wants to try and make more live action SCP stuff. Uh, we I've actually known Sherm for, I want to say, I knew him like I think I met him like in summer of 2020, just on Twitter.
Right.
I had a different account at the time, wasn't really an SCP, but had taken some pictures for my friend Toad King Studios, who does the Foundation After Midnight Radio podcast, and he has an Etsy shop,
Mm-hmm.
modeling a mobile task force shirt that he has, and I had posted those, and that's how I met Sharm. He was just like, "Awooga, healthy human female."
Nice. Good job, sir.
Respectfully, you know. But yeah, I know that he's similar to me. Like, he works best in kind of just the audio and visual and just like the performance aspect of, presenting media to people. So I know for him, he definitely wants to take a lot of things from the wiki and, and really showcase some of the newer stuff as well. So yeah, we talk here and there. We have very similar goals, I think, about just trying to continue to watch the wiki at its core evolve and grow and be shared and showcased to people who have maybe only heard of series 1
Right.
and maybe don't know like what goes into everything else.
Because I was gonna say,
But
you mentioned making like. Oh, sorry. Let's continue.
oh no, you're fine. I guess like the last thing that I kind of wanted to mention is where it feels weird when I'm so grateful that I get invited into more and more of these author spaces and stuff. And when I'm introduced and people are like, "Oh yeah, she's that SCP TikToker," and I'm just like, "Oh, just that feels weird." I don't know. I'm like, I feel like it's almost a disservice to the people who are putting in the work on TikTok, who are pumping out like 2 to 3 videos a day, and I'm lucky if I get like one out a week, you know. And and for me too, I'm like, oh man, I don't want TikTok to be like a bad word. I don't want people to like who aren't familiar with it to be like, oh, like dismissive about it, because there's
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people on there are putting in genuinely putting in a lot of work to try and
Yeah, I think
to
it gets a
pull
bit of
in.
a bad rap. I know I have in the past because it's like, oh, people do a simple dance and they get 300 million views. But as I
Mhm.
got to know people like you and Sherman, I've looked into it more. There's a lot of like genuine, really high effort stuff on there that people take the time to
Yeah.
make.
Well, and that was something that I had to kind of learn as an offsite person learning more about onsite, was just like, oh my gosh, like in my brain, I thought that these things that were getting big numbers in other places were originating from big numbers at the source. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like crazy to me, where I was just like, what do you mean? Like it sounds like so naive and silly, but yeah, I don't know if offsite people realize just like how much it means to actually really get involved with the wiki and go
Oh
back to
yeah.
the source.
It's a totally
And
different culture, and I think that's part of where some of
mhm,
those misunderstandings, like how it's an elite community of like hidden writers
uh-huh.
making it, or like some official group rather than just like teenagers on the internet with nothing better to do that want to put
Mm.
out something creative that they're passionate about.
Well, and I think unfortunately, I think whether people realize this or not, I don't think there's any ill intent meant, but I think, and because I've noticed this, and I can only really speak from my own experiences, is that I've noticed a little bit of an underlying resentment, I think, for those huge numbers that are taking place elsewhere, and that disconnect that's taking place elsewhere. You know, when those people want to actually try and interact with on site, kind of meeting a little bit of that
The
resentment
lead, yeah, elitism,
that
absolutely.
they
Right.
hadn't been expecting.
Yes.
And so it's kind of this cycle, an Ouroboros cycle, if you will, which I wrote, if you're very familiar with my
Wow, great
my
job on
work
that,
there.
by the way. Especially
Absolutely,
for only
Thank
absolutely.
being on
you.
the wiki since 2020. That's crazy that you made
Yeah,
that.
yeah. um, but I think if somebody's first experience trying to interact with the on-site community is meeting kind of that resistance or that resentment, it feeds back into people going, well, I'm not going to interact with that, and I'm just going to continue to put out content that I'm comfortable with and I already know other people already like.
Yep.
Type of thing.
I was just gonna. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I keep cutting you off, Darnell. I'll wrap this up. My to kind of end my thought there. For me, I when I get asked to cover series 1 stuff on my channel, which I do a lot, I've been having fun kind of doing more transformative things with it that I would hope that I can get more on-site people and authors and writers to actually check out my content, because my goal has been to create content for people who are already SCP fans. And so even though I might have to cover something from series 1, I just did a episode on Josie the Half Cat that is not about Josie the Half Cat.
Right.
It ends with it ends with audio of Asian Jackrabbit trying to hold her commander's intestines from falling out of his body. I'm
spoilers for the Jackrabbit arc. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared.
Yeah,
that's
right. Yeah,
that's pretty much what my channel is Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared, but SCP, where it's all happy and then it's just not, which is fun. But anyways, yeah, that's just kind of what I wanted to say there. Where I'm I don't know if I would describe myself as an SCP TikToker, but I also I'm still figuring myself out in this community. I haven't really been public about who I am in here yet, and so yeah, that's why I think this is really exciting to be able to to have you guys show me how the heck do I, hop on over into the actual wiki itself. So anyways, spiel done for now.
Let me try to remember the points I wanted to make real quick with you. First of all, I'm very glad to hear the wiki's been so helpful for you. Honestly, it sounds like you've had a much more transformative and positive experience than many others. I appreciate that you're willing to be vulnerable and tell us about and let your fans know a place where you come from, instead of the invincible content creator that a lot of people seem to idolize when it comes to people who get a lot of attention on the internet, so on and so forth. Second, apologies for referring to you as a TikToker. I didn't know that whole history behind that. If you would prefer content creator or some other title, that's fine with me.
I don't know what to call myself either. It's fine, dude.
All right. And then I was also going to mention, I know exactly how you feel. I had a similar thing. I don't want to rant about it because I've talked about it 1,000 times, but you've heard a little bit about Milk Jesus, and I had a similar situation where it's oh, this guy who's not a writer who just did a for fun podcast got a little too many upvotes a little too fast, and I got an extreme negative backlash for that, and no one was really oh shit, sorry, actually we were insane, until after it was voted off the wiki and properly punished for its indignant, or I don't know the word I'm looking for. So I get that. I think a lot of people are obsessed with this idea of getting more followers, getting more likes, getting more upvotes online. It's something bigger than the SCP Wiki. You see it everywhere. I talk about it a lot with people, and I think a lot of that anger at offsite stuff getting more attention gets misplaced. It's oh, these YouTubers suck. Oh, TikTok algorithm's unfair. Oh, Series 1 is boring. Oh, offsites are all just little kids. They don't know anything. And I think rather than that, there should be less of a focus on upvotes and more about the passion behind what you're making in the community you're a part of. Because truthfully, both the offsite and the onsite community are great in their own ways, but they are very, very different. And it's a little hard for that bridge to be closed on either side right now, because like you mentioned, a lot of people are oh boy, I can't wait to participate, and then they cold post. They don't know all the rules and complex relations of the wiki, and then people sometimes lash out and are not very helpful. But I think if you manage to get in, I think the community is pretty good. But I think right now there needs to be a better way to open that gate, and hopefully I think you can really help with that a lot. I hope this video helps with that. I hope you share
and I
your
think it's already happening. It's already happening. It's absolutely already happening. And so that's why I want to share my experience, and I want people to know what my intentions are. I understand that my intentions might be misunderstood when people first see my pictures or watch my videos. Agent Jackrabbit has a voice this high and bounces around, and it's right. That's Jackie and Jackrabbit are two completely different people. My mission statement, what I've come here to do, both on this podcast and in this community, is to I want to bridge that gap, because I think it's possible. Right. I genuinely think that it's possible, and we're already seeing it happening. So yeah.
Also, I just like you mentioning, like, Jackie, you're like, I have good intentions, and me in the corner holding up my hand. I solemnly swear I'm up to no good.
Oh.
But
naughty,
yes.
naughty.
Tan, do you have any thoughts you want to share before we officially start writing? We're almost like a half hour in, and we haven't put
He's
a
like
word on the page yet.
melting it, and I've written a few things down beforehand, so I'm not going to be like
Yes.
completely writing from scratch. So yes, but thank you. I wanted to be able to just get that out there, so we don't have a Milk Jesus 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Absolutely. We have to give a 25-minute disclaimer so everyone can frick off.
Right. All right, Tan Honey. Hello. Are you alive?
I am, yes. But yeah, it's like Don has there's sort of discrepancy between off-site and on-site. I have no illusions that this episode of a podcast is going to do anything to sort of bridge that gap, but maybe it'll be fun anyway.
I do. My protagonist-like ideal naivety will burst through your cynicism like a drill. This will literally change the world forever, and everyone will be nice to each other.
Okay, peace.
But enough slacking, Jackrabbit. It's time to start typing.
Time to start typing. Yes.
Yes.
Let me put my
Where's
old
the
lady
Google
glasses
Doc
on.
How do you not have the Google Doc, Tan? It's literally pinned in the group chat.
It's not.
Wait, is it not? No.
This guy.
I have it.
Oh,
I have it open.
Let me repin it. There you go. Okay, so I'm thinking while you type, we can offer stuff like as enough is popped up there, or we could just like, if it's not too distracting for you, Tan and I can just like riff in the background about stuff, or maybe talk with you if you're able to write and type at the same time. We're gonna play this.
Are you guys able to?
People can write and type.
Yes, I can see you. Test. Yep.
Hi.
Hi. Brilliant. That's the article. We're done. Lock it up.
Lock it up. All right.
But yes. So do you want to talk about the concept a little while you're writing, or would you prefer it's more of a surprise until like you've started putting it to paper?
Well, figured I can talk about it a little bit, especially if this is, the article is technically going to be up, before the episode airs.
Yes.
And so I guess people can I'm not necessarily going to be spoiling anything by discussing with you guys where my thought process is at.
Right.
So even though I'm offsite, I have people all the time asking me, how do I write an SCP? How do I get started? And even though I haven't written one before, I think that I have some advice for people where with anything that you're creating for the first time is that I think that it's always helpful to pull from something you're already familiar with, something that you already identify with. And
that doesn't mean you have to write like an SCP about like your Uncle Bill, but you can use ideas and themes that you like or familiar with or inspiration from real life to make something
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not completely going into this brand new territory completely, just blind. Now I'm not going to attempt to replicate anything here, but like metaphysician's a great example, of somebody who takes inspiration from something that he loves and understands and is transformative with it by applying it to the SCP community. Or like you guys just had Ekranak on here, where that taking a horror concept that perhaps feels familiar but applying it in kind of a new way so I tried to kind of start with something that I already had and already had been thinking about. I touched on with you guys that I, have been building this character and this lore about, just working for the Foundation and just feeling very disillusioned, but not necessarily enough to warrant amnestics, because as we know, those are super expensive.
Right.
And I think I don't think disillusionment is enough. That's just the basics of your job. If you can't perform the basic duties of your job, then we have a problem type of thing, I guess is what I was thinking there. So let's see, where did I put it? The second thing that I thought of advising new writers is to make a short list of other SCPs that you already like. I know that I've been talking with you about that, Darnell. I won't spoil any for you because I know that you.
I'm unable to read them, and I informed you. There's no way in hell Tan reads more than the last message that showed up in the group chat.
That's fine. Am I permitted to mention these 3 SCPs real quick? Like,
Go
they're
on.
not. I'm not gonna.
If you want, I can take my headphones off and like walk away for 5 minutes.
I don't. He thinks it'll have this actually said in like less than 5 minutes.
I will say though, if you
sure,
don't start typing words in a minute, I will activate the bomb I've implanted inside your ear. So.
Well, let's see. Yeah. Just end it for me, Darnell. Here, let me just say these real quick. Let me just say this real quick because I did try and go into this thinking about some SCPs that I liked and perhaps kind of influenced my thought process here.
Sure.
So maybe I don't know, Darnell, if you want to take your headphones off or not.
Okay,
first one
I'll be back in 5 minutes. Tan, you got
all right, 5 minutes. I'm gonna let me talk to Tan. Hello, Tanyoni. Can you say something to me in British?
Like what?
That was perfect. Okay.
I did it.
You did it. So 3 SCPs that kind of came to mind that influenced my thought process with this was SCP-3729. That's the best day of your life. Which is a wooden door frame that you walk through. Subject walks through. They end up having the best day of their life the next day. I think the test log's really fascinating. I love the internal discussions and disagreements between the heads of research on whether or not the Foundation should try to use the door's anomalous properties to their advantage. It's ultimately decided that the object should be classified as safe instead of thaumial. I love internal SCP politics. It's like one of my favorite things. The next one, this is a total classic one. But SCP-178, that's the 3D specs. They're a Euclid class object. The reason why I added that to my list of inspo here is because that was the first SCP as a new fan I was introduced to that I just loved the D-class test logs. And just how like simple each test log was and how it was different, but the results were just so interesting, where it's like, what if one D-class is wearing the glasses and the D-class who isn't wearing the glasses throws a tennis ball at the entities and what happens, type of thing. And it was one of my first exposures where I was just like, my gosh, like how many people do we keep killing to get these answers that just don't matter and ultimately serve no purpose other than satisfying our curiosity? And yet here I was just like so entranced by it and like, wow, maybe I'm the bad guy. But the last one that I had kind of listed was SCP-765. That's the duck pond.
Yes.
It's a safe class object, appears to be a simple pond that causes people to feel at ease when they're near to it. After a certain number of days around the pond, people will start to feel bored and lethargic. Trips to this SCP are offered as a sort of reward or a vacation to weary staff who are cycled through visits regularly. It's unclear if the effects of the pond are actually anomalous or if this is a placebo effect manufactured by the Foundation, assuring staff that they will feel at peace visiting the pond, hence the effects seemingly wearing off after a few days. So those were my 3 kind of things where I was just like, all right, I've come up with something that's kind of a, I guess, weird combination of that a bit. So I guess Darnell can come back here. All right, you guys can
I don't know how we will contact him.
Hello. It's a present. So
well, loyal viewers, Darnell is fucking dead. So
rip Darnell. Hey, congratulations on
what's going on?
Oh, he's back.
You're dead.
He's back.
Why did you say Darnell please in the chat?
I wanted you to return.
Oh, I said I'd be 5 minutes. All right. I don't see any new words on the page yet. I'm gonna start eliminating people.
I just wrapped things up. So you guys go right ahead. If you want to go ahead and just chit chat.
We're gonna start chatting.
We're gonna like
while you start
sports commentators.
I'm only being so pushy for you.
The item number.
I'm only being so pushy for you to type both because I know it helps me when I get things started to like start going, and also because I know you have a time limit today. And if possible, it'd be epic if you get this uploaded today instead of like on Monday.
Everything's epic these days. Remember when things used to be like good?
Tanhoney.
It's done.
But yeah, while Jackrabbit's writing, oh wow, nice. While Jackrabbit's writing, I want to mention it's funny how different our experiences is. Like hers was genuinely like so like real and transformative, and ours was the equivalent of like So Tan's someone I met on a roleplay server way back
yes,
when.
for undisclosed franchise.
Yeah, he hates when I mention this because it's embarrassing. It is embarrassing, but it was fun. And I was like, and he like would vaguely occasionally mention SCP, but I didn't really know or care what SCP was. So I was like, oh, whatever. Like maybe I would read an article if he posted it sometimes or something, but I don't remember that much. But he was just like a great writer to me. And for a long time, I had a running gag that I've now let him off the hook for since he's ran JoJo for us. Like, he wrote this really compelling and interesting campaign, and I was so invested. My character was, like, about to reach a climax, and then he's like, sorry, guys, we're going on an indefinite hiatus. And then it never finished.
I don't sound like that. I don't sound like that.
You don't sound... yeah, but... for a while...
his impressions, whenever I do something he doesn't like, I suddenly start sounding like that.
Yeah, he's like, sorry. That's me copying you, because you always do that. You go, sorry, when you're being sarcastic. That's just me stealing your bit. But yeah, what happened was a few years ago, he was like, because I also ran a JoJo campaign with him, and that ended prematurely. He was like, hey, Darnell, if I ran a JoJo thing, would you want to do it? I was like, sure, buddy, I haven't seen you in a while. So I joined him for that. We start talking in, and of course, we're fast buddies like old times, being chuny again. And we get close to finishing the first campaign, or we finished the first campaign, I don't remember. And he's like,
I think we already finished it.
He was like, hey, this pandemic thing, I don't have to go to work anymore for the next indefinitely. And I've been thinking I would like to do a YouTube. Would you want to join me? It's something about SCP. And I was like, I don't know if it was his idea or mine. I don't want to like accidentally take credit, but one of us was like, oh, you know those things where like it's like I'm showing my grandma Smash characters. It's like, what if we do that? Because yeah. I'll believe you. I'm too. You can gaslight me. I don't remember, but
I wanted to watch those videos, so that's probably.
Yeah, I believe you. And I was like, oh yeah.
I was just gonna say, I love what just what you guys have come up with this podcast. Seriously, if your podcast had existed when I first discovered SCP, like it did. Smile. It's so helpful. No, it's perfect, right? It's so perfect because not only are you just like so knowledgeable, Tan, but like Darnell, you ask really great questions. You're a fantastic avatar for like the new fan. I'm serious. Like that was one thing I really noticed when I was listening to more of you guys' episodes for the first time, where I was just like, Darnell's like really like. You ask the questions that are popping into my brain, and so fantastic work, both of you. It's a great dynamic.
Like, not to toot my own horn too much, but I personally like to think I'm a curious person, but also I think one thing I bring to SCP is a little bit of fresh eyes, like you mentioned, for new people, because I feel like most people that are already in SCP, they're either like heavily entrenched on the on-site community, or they already have their solidified opinions of like what SCP is to them based on the off-site content they consume. But me, I don't have like some like worship of Cactus or like these specific authors are like, oh my god, this article, I read it when I was 13 and now it's the only good article in my eyes. So it like I'm listening to these all as like, what was I, 21 or 22 when we started, in 23, like an adult who's new to all this. So sometimes I'm like, wow, this is really cool, and sometimes we read the Little Misters and I'm like, these fucking suck. No, that's mean to the people who wrote the Little Misters.
You didn't say that at the time.
No, that was an exaggeration. But like sometimes I'm genuine. I'm like, I don't think these are very good. I don't know why people like them. I did that with Dr. Brights, and I got some flack for that, his proposal. I didn't know anything about his like drama or whatever. But I was like, this article sucks, and everyone's like, you just don't get it. I was like, no, it's just badly written. But no, for the most part, I genuinely love engaging. I like to think I have good questions and involve people in. And people seem to like it. And I think Tan's presence definitely helps because, like, both of us give some people someone to relate to. They've got the guy who's already been on SCP for over a third of his life, and they've got the brand new guy who has no clue what he's doing. And it also helps, like, all memes aside, that Tan and I are just genuine, like, long-term friends. I don't have any reverence for him whatsoever. I'm not like, oh my god, you're a big deal author. I'm so glad to talk to you. I'm just like, he's Tan. He's the guy who didn't finish Atlantis Grail War.
That's
you just closed the franchise.
That's really my entire friendship with DJ Cactus summed up right there, because I did not grasp the full scale of who he was and everything that he had written when we first became friends. And it was one of those things where I was just like, oh my god, and that one too, and he wrote that one too, and he wrote that one too. The more I discovered about just who he was, that's why I just spend all my spare time just roasting him all day.
And honestly, I think that's the best way, because it's
great. They're just people. They're just people, and they're just it's and he's awesome. He's so
Yes.
great. He's become a good buddy.
And it's easy to view people as numbers. Like, he had this whole Twitter thread talking about, like, the danger of caring too much about upvotes. And when I was trying to bring it up, people were like, well, that's big coming from the guy with the most upvotes. And I'm like, first of all, he's just a fucking person. He's not, like, an enigma.
Well, it should mean the most coming from that person who's telling you what actually matters.
The richest man in the world. It's like fucking...
Yeah, the richest man in the world says money bad. Easy for him to say. But for real, like, it's easy to see people online. And, you know, I'm not calling anyone out. I'm not insulting anyone. I know, like, if you have been in SCP for a long time, you probably, but, like, occasionally, very rarely, most of our fans are good about, but I'll see someone who, like, clearly worships Tanhoney a little bit. And it's like, hey, and I just try to politely be like, hey, he's just a guy. You don't gotta, like, sweat it that much.
It's okay, you can keep going.
yeah, Tan encourages it, but, no. But yeah,
well, I for me, like I want people to talk to me like I'm just a regular person. I don't want people to be scared of me. And I know that I know that a lot of people, you know, might put me on a little bit of a pedestal or you know, think a certain type of way about me or be worried about me. But you know, I want to be treated like a regular person, and so that's why I try and treat other people like a regular person. You know, because we are. Sister. So. But anyways, so I do have some stuff out here, and
should we read this?
This is about as far as I got before I started to have some questions for you guys and expressing, I guess, some notes I'd taken of just like some walls that I ran into.
Yes.
You know, being like, what the heck do I do next?
We would be happy to help, but first, real quick, is there more you plan to add to the description after we answer your questions, and do you plan to do like addendums and all that, etc., or is this like more on the very short end?
Maybe. Well, why don't you go ahead and read it?
Yes.
I'll kind of explain where it's going, what the heck's going on, because just go ahead and read it. I'll explain what the thing is, and then you can tell me how I can adapt that to the wiki.
Item number, SCP-6XXX. Object class, safe. Thaumiel? Oh no. No, Jesus, flashbacks. Well, the thing too is I'm glad you actually wrote and you're writing what you want, because I'm pretty sure at the time in the podcast, even though I eventually grew attached to it, I chose Thaumiel because I was told it would piss the most people off. Because people get really mad when you don't do safe Euclid Keter because they have like.
I remember like at the time I was like, no, maybe.
I was like foolish. No, but let's keep going.
It's
Okay.
Special
containment. If I just quickly nitpick, I don't know if safe needs to be in all caps.
Oh,
that's a good point. It should just be safe.
Is it?
Capital S A.
It's like it's shouting at me.
If it's Tanhoney, he would want you to spell it with a Z, so it's Zafe.
Or either Zafe or safe with an accent on the end.
Yeah, but no, safe with just the capital S. That does make sense. Yeah. Special containment procedures. SCP-6XXX is, I'm just going to call it SCP from here on out to save my time.
Yeah, it's fine.
Is to be kept in a standard security locker located in the Safe Class Containment Center of Site-42. Removal of SCP from its locker is currently exclusively available for use by Dr. Brisky for the purposes of clinical psychology, with a focus on mobile task force psychiatric evaluation and general therapeutic practices for Class C individuals. This is a little bit of a run-on sentence. I would try to break this up into two sentences.
I know that I need to like majorly trim the fat on most of this, but I figure I'd over-explain and then
that's fine.
Remove stuff.
Well, and I don't even think you need to remove stuff. I just think you need to turn this one sentence into two sentences. Removal of the SCP is currently exclusively available for use by Dr. Brisky for the purposes of clinical psychology. Period. This has a focus on mobile task force evaluation and general therapeutic practices for Class C. A minimum clearance of level 3 is required to qualify for exposure to 6XXX. The subject must possess no knowledge of the nature of the SCP's existence before being introduced to its anomalous properties, so it can only be fresh eyes with level 3 clearance.
Yeah.
What I might do, I'll just sort of demonstrate this on the page, like if we break this up a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's sort of like a different subject at that point. It sort of breaks up into
I was gonna say that both like makes it neater and like for readers, there's a little bit of a psychology thing where, like, if you see a giant block of text, especially for, like, neurodivergent brains, it's a lot harder to read than when it's broken up
Well, and I know you and I are so similar with that, Darnell. Like we were already joking about that when I was even like getting, set up on the wiki. And that's why I'm so much more of a like show don't tell type of person.
Mm-hmm.
It is agonizing for me to like try and write this clinically.
I know exactly how you feel. I was the same way when I was writing my SCP.
So I welcome anything you have to say because this is physically painful.
And almost what I would suggest to you, Jackrabbit, and you should finish this SCP. You wrote it out, you have an idea you're passionate about. And I'm not saying you should never write an SCP in the future, but you might be like me in that I think you might enjoy GOI formats or Tales more after you get your feet wet.
Oh, yeah.
Because those are a lot more like, yeah.
I'm definitely probably more going to be more of a Tales person, but I think it's important for everybody to like start at square one and understand this and have an appreciation for this first. I think that's showing that you're respecting, where this all came from and not so yeah. So by all means, just help.
That said, I better see a Tale series canon or a Tale series for Agent Jackrabbit based on what you've described. I need like at least 3 Tales stat.
Oh, I'm already collaborating with somebody on that, but we'll talk about that later.
On God. A letter of recommendation from the subject's superior commanding officer, along with approval from no fewer than 2 ethics committee representatives, must exist on record for Dr. Brisky to be allowed to remove the SCP from its containment unit and utilized during a standard clinical psychology session. So this is a little strange because you mentioned it's exclusively for the doctor, but it's actually for the test subjects, but the doctor also does not have exclusive authority over it. It needs to be a brain. There's nothing bad with that. It's just my brain gets a little confused. I would say... Oh, sorry,
go ahead. Go ahead. No. Where my head was at with this, where I was just like, how the heck do I do this? Where a lot of articles that I really like, kind of do a little bit of a like out of order storytelling.
Right.
Where like when you're reading the special containment procedures, that's usually what's been determined by the end.
Yeah, after the description and the addendums.
So what I'm trying to do, I guess, and you can help me figure out how to streamline this, is like, I guess, like, there's going to be this initial confusion because you guys have no idea what this thing we're even working with is. And so it's just like, what is up with like all these like
I'm guessing that comes
these
from like
hoops to jump through is like the test logs figuring out how it works and then deciding like what we're actually going to do with it type of thing.
I'm guessing originally this doctor could like just hand it out, then more things were implemented as results were seen, became more locked down, etc.
But again, I'm just kind of like, man, it's such a simple concept, but I came up with more and more freaking ideas. I'm like, man, this
is going to be an addendum SCP, I can tell. Any other comments on special containment procedures, Tim, before I start with description?
I might, like, this sentence here I was going to highlight. Again, it might be a bit of a run-on, though, if we could maybe split this into two sentences just for, like, readability there.
Yeah. And, again, I might end up friggin' rewriting the entire thing once I finally get around to doing things like addendums and whatnot, but, like, you see how, like, this is contagious and exciting, and I do want to say that for anybody listening who's maybe coming in from my audience where they're just like, oh man, she's getting so frustrated and flustered. Not at all. Like, I came in just being like, this started getting really exciting for me as I was going through it, and I actually really enjoyed suddenly being challenged where I was just like, well, wait, like, how would you try and, like, just tease people just enough and get them interested just enough? Don't over-explain things from the beginning and give away the ending and all this stuff. So I want to clarify that if anybody hears me just getting flustered and frustrated, it's because I'm having fun, I swear.
Gun pressed to the back of your head. She said she's having fun.
Yes. If Tantoni and Darnell weren't literally in my house right now with a gun to my head,
I would still be doing it. No, but here, you mentioned you might want to rewrite it later after you get further in. You still want to think about it. So how about, Tan, you highlight and leave a comment on Google so we know to return to that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I'm going to leave a comment now. Watch this shit.
While he does that... Description. SCP-6XXX appears to be a circular white plastic button measuring 70.8 millimeters, set in a black plastic base measuring 87.9 millimeters. What I would do, and you don't know the coding for this yet because we haven't mentioned it, but it might be easier to just put the measurements as footnotes to black plastic base and plastic button respectively.
I would disagree. I
Really?
would disagree. I feel like footnotes should usually be something outside of the main description. It's like supplementary information. If it's important for the physical description, I feel like it should be in the description itself.
Okay. And standing at approximately 33.8 millimeters. So already this gives me a bit of a Series 1 vibe, and I don't mean that in a negative or positive way whatsoever.
Nope,
it's just
that's fine. It's very it's definitely old school. It's definitely old school.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm hopeful that people can feel like they can still do something like that. Yes. But again, like I said, I'm hoping that the underlying thing that ends up going on here will be interesting enough, at least for people who have been just like, oh great, this again.
You know what? Forgive me for getting ahead of myself before you have it written, but based on what you talked about this idea ahead of time, you mentioned earlier how a lot of what you do on TikTok right now is like, exploring Series 1, but going into the deeper stuff. Like, you know, taking that and exploring it more. Mm-hmm. And I'm almost seeing that a little bit in the article. Based on what I know your concept is like this very much Series 1 type beat in the description, but then you're delving into the more later series style of addendums, narrative. Where is this going? Putting the story on the characters. And I think that might create an interesting hybrid.
Mm-hmm. And we're going to be dealing with people who are very tired of the same old.
Yes, exactly. So it fits the theme. See, that's another thing I want to praise you for as an author. You're already thinking about the themes. A lot of people, and I don't want to say this is bad. All ideas start with something.
No, it's okay. Names.
But a lot of people. I'm not pointing out or thinking of anyone specifically. When they think of SCP, think of like the monster they want or the effect, rather than the theme of what they're writing. And I'm not saying every SCP article needs to be some like thematic thesis statement, complex, statement on mental health and society. But when you write with themes in mind rather than just the monster, I feel like that makes it a lot easier to know where you want the story to go, what you're trying to drive.
And I'll even mention that my favorite SCP is SCP-3001, which
is that Red Reality?
Have a monster in it. Yes, correct.
I love Red Reality.
And so that doesn't even have a monster in it. You know, that it's just massive. Just the theme in that one is the whole core of it. And so, anyways, but yes. Go ahead and read my beautiful description where I had to convert inches into millimeters because I'm just that dedicated.
American type beat. Upon being pressed, the button emits What were you saying?
Oh, look, colonial measurements.
Just agonizing. I know. Yeah, Jackrabbit, why haven't you wanted to write an SCP before? I'm like, I'm literally having to convert inches into millimeters right now.
Shaking my head. Literally putting
just
numbers
never,
on
just do what I do and never describe anything.
Yeah, he's just like nutritional chart number A.
I dodged
That's it. Upon being pressed, the button emits a slightly distorted sound clip matching that of a 1964 commercial for McDonald's, featuring the company's mascot Ronald McDonald declaring, "That's a wonderful idea!"
Just like Flowey from Undertale.
I would almost, and again, this is a personal taste thing, you can keep it.
Oh my god.
But I would almost remove the thing about the mascot, because this isn't a visual, this SCP isn't the commercial, it's just the sound clip. So I would just say the sound clip of the company's mascots declaring.
Yeah.
And remove Ronald McDonald and avoid licensing altogether.
I don't know, like, because I think I misunderstood what you were saying, because I thought you like changed it to a distorted sound clip of Ronald McDonald declaring that's a wonderful idea, and I thought the implication would be like you can recognize his voice immediately. Everyone knows.
Yeah, exactly.
Sounds like.
Yeah, it was distinctly Ronald McDonald.
But it's like that's my point though, because no one knows what Ronald McDonald fucking sounds like.
Yeah, so I would almost say just the company's mascot shouting, or just it being declared. But again, that's a stylistic choice. That's not really like you have.
I didn't even know Ronald McDonald talks until right now, to be honest.
He talks. He's just always like.
I thought he was like a mime, like a clown and a mime.
No,
So,
dual hybrids, entertainer.
Sure isn't one.
So I'll mention that this sound clip that I'm referring to is in every single one of my videos, and so that's actually one of the reasons why I thought about tying it into this whole thing. And I actually have the button in question in front of me right now that plays the sound clip. So I was like, I'm going to take something I already have, I guess. So
there you go.
So yeah.
So you mentioned there wasn't too much for us to edit here other than like slight grammar and like maybe stylistically because it's still in its bare bones. But you said you had some questions, some walls you hit that you wanted to ask us about.
Gosh, yeah. Well, okay. Let me see. Do you guys mind if I step away for just a moment and come back in like 60 seconds?
Absolutely.
Sure. 60
right,
seconds.
be right back.
Pass.
60
Da, da,
seconds.
da, da,
Yes,
da.
60 seconds.
It's a fucking JoJo moment, like the Anomalous,
Right.
start putting like anxious sounding music and amp it up over the course of these 60 seconds.
You guys behave. I'll be right back.
Anomalous, can you flip the screen upside down for me? Thank you.
Anomalous, put a dancing penguin in the middle of the article.
Anomalous, I'm going to watch this video, so I'll know if you don't this time.
Poor Anomalous. And I especially feel bad because this is going to be like a 4 to 6 hour video, depending on how long.
Anomalous, can you make this like a DVD screensaver where it's like trying to bounce around the screen? Anomalous, can you have it hit the corner now? Thank you.
Okay, Anomalous, you don't have to do any of this shit. Except for the music
No,
thing,
you have
that'll
to
be
do it all
funny.
Anomalous, can you increase the volume of the music by 20% right now?
Anomalous, can you
I'll know
decrease
if
it by
you do.
17.8%?
Anomalous, can you tell me why my wife left me?
Oh, Tanhoney.
Thank you.
Door opens. Are you talking to my ex-husband, Tanhoney?
I'm talking to Anomalous!
I was implying that I stole your wife.
Not you, harlot!
Dude, flashback to that time in D&D when, like, you won your ex-wife back in a gambling match for the ages. Do you remember those days?
Well, I rejected her.
Yeah, you did, because you'd grown past, you'd grown as a character. I remember you
encouraged
wanted to
to
give
do
up
that.
too. You had invested so many times. You were like, guys, let's go, and they were like, no, you could do this, bird boy.
And then I did. And it wasn't even like roleplay wise, I just actually defeated Darnell by rolling dice.
Yeah, it was insane. I genuinely was like, what the fuck? He just bet his max. Oh, he fucking kaiju'd me. That's what happened.
Put my headphones back on right when Tanoni was like, "Be gone, you harlot," and I'm like,
Oh, no, you
Sorry, we were talking about Tanhoney's imaginary ex-wife who'd left him. No, you're good. You're not the harlot. We were talking about his imaginary ex-wife, which led us to talk about his imaginary D&D ex-wife that left him.
"Oh, I'm following this perfectly. Fantastic."
No problem. Okay, so anyways, questions.
So, gosh, man, brain go brr. The whole thing with this for me is that, you know, I'm not necessarily. I know it's very Series 1-esque of a, you know, article. Basically, the idea that I have here is that when you press this button, any idea that you currently had in your mind, no matter how objectively good or bad of an idea that might have been, you are now thoroughly convinced that it's a good idea.
You know
and
what?
I know that that's very.
Sorry for
That's how
interrupting.
this good SCP got started.
Sorry for interrupting, and this may even already be your idea. I hope I'm not like spoiling it ahead of time, but because
Oh,
we
no,
talked
you're
about
fine.
like how there's test logs of this now, it's locked down, right? And you mentioned like fed up with monotony, so I think it would be a really banger if like one of them or like the ending test log was someone like happened to start thinking or said something like the foundation needs to change, and then the button gets pressed, and then it like cuts off.
So, yeah, exactly, something like that. And one thing that I kind of put into my thought process behind this, and with an SCP that I had mentioned to Darnell, or to Tanhoney, you guys, same people, you know, I don't know. Sorry.
We're literally the same, except I'm just like more
You're
American.
literally the same. Yeah, you're just doing two voices. Was you know, one of the SCPs that I had mentioned to Tanhoney that kind of influenced my thought process to this. When you interact with that anomaly, it actually kind of rewrites the fabric of reality when you interact with it. I didn't really want to go that far with this. I more liked the idea of pressing this button and being self-assured that your idea is a good idea irrevocably. It doesn't actually like alter reality in some way and
make it a
actually
good
make
idea.
that a good legs.
It's like suggestion.
Yeah, it's just a very, very powerful suggestion type of thing going on there.
Interesting.
So it's difficult, I guess, and the wall that I kind of hit as I was trying to kind of form this outline last night. Because again, I wanted to come in pretty, you know, not overly having everything written out, but I did, you know, hit this wall where I was just like, man, like this article is not about the button.
Yeah.
This article is about, you know,
It's about the people. The
what
button
the-
is just the driving force.
The stimulus.
Exactly. And so I'm just like, my ADHD brain was just absolutely just like sputtering after just describing this button that I could buy at the office supply store, and just being like, gosh, how do I get started, by eventually just saying what I'm trying to get at is that the button ends up winding up in a clinical psychologist's office, where if you're dealing with a mobile task force operative who's starting to get a little bit weary, that they go through their entire session, and the doctor just kind of jokingly, you know, like encourages them to continue doing what they're doing, and is just like, you know what, I've got just the funny thing for this, like has the button on the way out type of thing. So, and I'm like, how do I get there?
So here's what I'm thinking, right? The first question that pops in my head, and I bet what might be popping in your head, forgive me for making the assumption, what might be stalling you, is the idea, how did they come into possession of this button, and or how did it accidentally get triggered? And I say the best way to do that is to ignore it for a number of reasons. One, because sometimes sometimes explaining takes away from the article and can have more questions. Two, it gives room for people who read it to theory craft how it ended up there or what the button really is. And that's the number one way to get an article to stick in someone's head, is when they can start projecting their own theories and ideas and headcanons onto it. And three, because let's say someone comes up with a really good idea, you do come up with something later, you can introduce it in a later SCP or article, and it can be like a cool reveal. So I would almost say, all you have to do is just say it was there and make it clear he didn't realize it had a power to it. Like, because you said all it does is make you assured it's a good idea, so maybe he bought it at a flea market as a joke, and he's never used it for something that was, like, extreme enough that it's like, oh, it's clearly influencing me. He just did it. And it wasn't until something extreme happened that they realized it.
Is that he knows.
Yeah, and like I said, you know, since it's not altering the fabric of baseline reality anyway, it's just only affecting the individual. It could have taken years upon years upon years before this caught the attention of the Foundation.
Because how could they prove that, right? You could just say that's motivation.
Exactly. So yeah, I hadn't stressed too much about like where it came from. I guess again, in like some of the inspo SCPs that I brought up, you know, I thought the test logs had some potential to be kind of funny, you know, as far as just like, you know, I don't know, I honestly just kind of hit a bit of a wall at this point, because I'm like, I feel like I have a really good idea here. I know the direction I want to take it. When it comes to me as a writer, again, we already said this, where I think that I'll probably do better with things like tales. I do really well with writing dialogue. I'm looking forward to being able to write some sort of dialogue, whether it's between this, you know, Dr. Brisky, who's the psychologist who, you know, is eventually the one who's able to utilize this in her sessions, you know, with these disillusioned people. I think it'll be really interesting to be able to write dialogue between her and, you know, the agents who come in for these sessions, who are talking about how they're feeling.
I'll tell you the first thing that comes to my mind, if you don't mind.
Go right ahead.
And forgive me, this is my ADHD brain spouting out ideas like you mentioned. But here's the first article where I think that might reveal its properties, right? A first log that's big enough that they would realize its properties and start testing it, but also small enough that the first consequences aren't that big. So you mentioned that they're a clinical psychologist, they deal with MTF, right? So I can imagine a scene where an MTF is coming in and they're traumatized. You know, they watch their friends die, some SCP went rampage, whatever. There's a million things you could come up with. And they're like, I don't know if I could do this anymore. And the psychologist is trying to calm down, like, I know it's hard, but this is your job, you gotta do this. And they're like, so what? I'm just supposed to keep watching my friend's idea die? And they're jokingly trying to lighten the mood, press the button, and they're like, okay. And then they go back to work and they're like, hold on, that's not normal.
That's exactly.
It kind of weird. I have to say though, it's a strange interaction for him to be like freaking out, like, "Oh, why don't you press the button though?"
Well, no. Maybe it's even on accident. Like maybe he brings it out earlier and does it as a gag, and then like he gets startled when he starts shouting and hits it a second time.
But you're at least picking up what I'm putting down. You know, like just kind of seeing like where this is going, and I'd also taken into consideration, because I think, this is another thing that I would encourage, authors, that if you're wanting to go with something really simple like this, that ultimately this anomaly is only going to really be kind of passed around within the Foundation. It's important to have a little bit of an idea of lore and how things work within the Foundation. I had to ask myself, where I was just like, why wouldn't they just use this on D class who don't want to participate in like a test? Well, I think the very simple answer for that would be that it would potentially skew the test results.
Yep.
So it wouldn't be utilized in that way. Whereas, if you have a mobile task force operative who are the best of the best, and not necessarily, even though we just throw them into the, wood chipper like they're fodder all the time anyways, they're supposed to be the best of the best. I don't think they're that easily replaceable as far as just being like, all right, new person who's an expert in this specific field. I think you're wanting to try and continue to utilize somebody who's really good at what they were already doing, and you don't want to have to affect their mind too much with things like amnestics. So yeah, that's why I thought that placing this with the mobile task forces made a little bit more sense than just being like, D class whoever doesn't want to go into the Sarlacc pit. Like,
yeah, exactly. So my first thought, if you're struggling for an interview log, that is, I don't know if that's what you're stuck on, is something like, because I imagine
I don't know where to go from here, because I come up with my idea, and again, I almost don't know if I should take your advice, and I know we had mentioned possibly reconvening. I don't know if I should take your guys' advice, reconvene, and have everything after that, because once I got to this point, I was like, well, now I want to write these characters, and now I want to I'm like, man, that's why I hit a wall, because I didn't necessarily want to come on and use your guys' valuable time just going, what the hell am I doing?
Except that's exactly what we want, because we want to show the process. We want to humanize.
Exactly. That's why I'm being honest about just I absolutely hit a wall, not necessarily running out of ideas, but not sure how to
how to put them in all the time.
I
would say, if you're just looking for a sorry.
No, you're fine.
If you're just looking for a structure, the first thing my head comes up to, a way you could set up an organic thing, and I don't think you can jump right into this. I think there's a little more needed description to lead into addendums, but it'd be something like, I imagine the button has no effect if an idea hasn't been said or thought or whatever, right? It's just a button otherwise. So maybe it's
and that would be like some of the test logs where it's just like, okay, well, what happens if somebody presses it with a stick instead of with their hand? Does it still work? How do we know if they're telling the truth? And I'm just like, man, this was supposed to be the simplest freaking idea ever, and now it's not.
I would say avoid those little pitfalls for now. You can always create an experiment log or add them if you want them, but it's very easy to fall into that trap, and I think you have a good narrative and a good idea that you should stick with. My first thing that I think of is, you set the scene, the psychiatrist, the counselor's at their desk, maybe they've got the button there as a toy, MTF comes in, it's like, excuse me, can I talk to you for a moment? And they're like, sure, what's up? And it's like, there's just been a lot on my mind, and I think it would be helpful to open up to you. And they jokingly hit the button, like, oh, that's a wonderful idea. And they're like, haha, thanks. They get talking, MTF starts getting into it, they trade back and forth. Eventually, MTF kind of blows up, it's like, what am I supposed to do, watch my friends die, or whatever it is. That kind of shocks the doctor enough that they sort of jump back, accidentally hit the button, and then the huge visible change is seen. After that, maybe there's some sort of maybe you mentioned MTF went on to perform their duty with above average results, or did it without complaint, etc. Some sort of psychiatric evaluation following, trying to figure it out, and then you can go further into those test logs, like just how far is this thing pushed, how has it gone. That's my idea personally, that I think you could go with this.
That's a wonderful idea.
It does not translate over the mic.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you need a little more in description,
screaming at me.
Listed below is addendums. I don't know, how would you word it, Tan? Addendums below involving test logs and discovery of SCP's anomalous properties.
What helps me, before I ever start writing an article, I've sort of mulled the idea in my head for usually a while. I've got an idea of how I want it to be laid out, what addendums I want, and stuff like that. And then at that point, it's just sort of colouring in the blank space, really.
Yeah.
So a note that another note that I had made as far as just I think concerns that maybe new writers have, because this is definitely one that I have, is because of how massive everything is and how much lore has been written.
Mhm.
You know, your impression as an offsite fan, which is what I loved about SCP, is that, you know, it is this like collaborative, you can kind of do whatever you want. There's a fluid canon, you know,
Mhm.
it's type of thing.
In more than
And
one way.
and yeah, goo.
The goo
Um,
cannon.
Goo Cannon Alaguda. Anyways, but yeah, just I I found myself kind of just like freezing up anytime I felt concerned. Like, you know, am I stepping on toes by assuming that this would even be allowed or this would
Here's
be
the answer.
possible?
The answer is no, you're not. There is so much ridiculous shit I've seen in popular and unpopular SCPs alike in the over 100 we've read. Some are very clinical, very formal. Some are clearly, I even would joke, like, who the fuck allowed this, Tan? Why would they ever do it this way? And the thing is, what you've probably unconsciously done as a reader, and what a thing that helps as a writer, is realizing that people have something called a suspension of disbelief. As long as you don't jar them, as long as there's a fluid narrative, as long as things relatively make sense, usually, unless someone's like specifically trying to critique you or give you a hard time, things that might not be exactly the way it should be will be forgiven or looked over. So what you
Well,
should do is write what you want, and then it's easier for you and other people to go back and read after and be like, is this too far? Rather than worry as you're writing about that.
Well, and let me go ahead and just say this for the sake of just kind of pacing all of our time. I'm going to be completely honest with you guys. I kind of feel like, and again, I know we had already thrown this out there. I kind of feel like I might need to kind of ruminate on the advice that you guys have given me and represent it to you after
Okay.
I've taken some of your advice, if that's okay. I know that we were going to kind of like try and like
Yes.
do like a live thing right here. But I'm really trying to take this seriously. I'm really
That's
wanting
fine.
to like show people like, you know, where it's just like, because I've seen from like, you know, what interactions I've had on the wiki so far, like I think that people should feel comfortable presenting their ideas to people, getting some criticism and advice, kind of workshopping that and being like, okay, here's where I go from here. But speaking of that, what I was kind of curious, I guess, to ask you guys, just from your experiences and everything, is when it comes to criticism and when it comes to seeking, you know, constructive criticism from people, everybody kind of has a different idea of what they like to see in SCP and what they want to see in writing. And so, what advice do you have for people when it comes to presenting something? Because you might be presenting your version and what you like about SCP to somebody who isn't receptive to that. And the response that you're going to get is just so disconnected from what you're exactly looking for. What are like the best questions to, I guess, somebody? What's the best criticism to look for from people? Does that make sense at all?
Yes.
What I'm saying, I don't want people to shy away from criticism or take it personally. But I know as an artist that sometimes I'll present something to somebody who has no idea like what I'm even trying to do, doesn't even ask what I'm trying to do, and they'll just critique it, and I'll be like, that's not what I was even asking.
So
there's a difference I feel between sort of the technical level of critique and like the conceptual level. You have to be clear on what you're looking for.
So Tan, I know absolutely will have some good advice on this, but do you mind if I take this first, Tan? Because I was actually talking about this on the SCP Wiki Discord the other day, and I feel like I made some really good points I could go over right now.
I would love
No, don't you do it.
So I said, so someone asked, how do you guys balance the critique you get with the critiques of other people without detracting from your own personal vision? And I said, at a certain point, you need to make executive decisions. You absolutely should, and I'm reading this word for word, you absolutely should always get crit and take experience writers into account, but there are a few things to keep in mind. One is, the more people you get to crit, the more stretched out and bland your work will become to try and accommodate all their tastes. I've heard tales and memes of people who get like 50 critters. That's insanity. What that says to me is either that you're incredibly afraid of your article having any negative attention to the point that you would pound it down into nothing, or that you're so insecure in your writing that you are just indefinitely putting it off by getting more crit under the guise of like, oh, I need more advice. I said you're better off getting a small but concrete number of people who crit, and ideally, preferably people who you think your target audience would be. So let's say, I know you mentioned sarcasm a lot. You like sarcasm. I would go with other people who get the vibe of sarcasm. I would get crit from people like Meta. I would get crit from other Sarkic fans who like the same articles as you. I would not ask, I mean, I know this is a meme. I'm sure they could also give great advice, but I would not ask, like, Broken God fan 1673, how do I make my flesh scoop better?
Well, I don't know about that, actually, because they're pretty closely related in terms of...
Okay, yeah, bad example, but you know what I mean. I would not get someone who doesn't like that type of writing, who likes something more clinical, like,
seek out the people who are already interested in the type of things that you like writing, and so are going to give you the type of constructive criticism
exactly.
and this isn't actually looking for.
Yes, and this isn't like padding your way to get good advice. The opposite. People who really like the same things as you are going to point out what makes them like it and what they want yours to be that is missing. Second, I would say make sure people are valuable critters. I think anyone can offer valuable critique. I don't think it has to be like some 10-year-long SCP author. But ideally, you should get people who are both going to take the time to read and people who aren't afraid to tell you, hey, this could be better. You should do this, instead of like, oh, very good. Yes, I love what you're doing. Keep doing it, because they want to make you feel better, you know? And I think most of the wiki is good about that. But like generally, I would go with as a rule of thumb, experienced authors, people whose vision you trust, rather than like someone who's a close friend of yours that maybe has never written for the wiki or is just like another wiki fan.
Because, well, and I know that I struggle with that when it comes to like offering crit. Because again, I just love all the authors so much because of like the impact they've had on my life, that I just want everyone to feel like uplifted. But if someone were to come to me about like, hey, can I get advice for staging a film set, or sound mixing and sound editing, that's something I know how to do and can actually offer valuable advice on.
Right.
So yeah, I okay, so that was definitely something that would come to my mind, where I'm just like, go on.
Yes. Sorry. I don't mean to interrupt you.
No, you're fine.
My third point was sometimes, and this, I'm wary saying this because I feel like a new author might potentially hear this and just decide to deny all crit that gives them more work. You should absolutely take criticism and advice. That's good. And if you're on the newer side and you're asking the right people, experienced authors who are fans of the type of stuff you want to write, I would default to their advice. But when you've started writing for a while and you have a little bit of a concrete style, I would say sometimes it's okay to not take crit if it goes against your vision or style. For an example I listed, during Aetherial Space, a lot of the time I give Tan editing advice while I'm reading. I'm like, you could do better with this wording choice, maybe you should do it like this. And a lot of times he's like, yeah, that's good advice, Darnell. But occasionally he goes, no, I like the way this is worded, this is the style I'm going for, this is the vision I have. And he's been an author long enough that he knows that. He's confident enough to make the calls where he goes, okay, Darnell's a point, and when he goes, no, this is my stylistic choice compared to yours, Darnell. Because everyone, even if they're trying to give you the most objective advice ever, everyone writing in anything with art is an inherently personal thing. Inevitably, you have biases, you have style preferences that leak in. And being able to separate, this will make my article better, to this is just what that person likes more, my thing's not bad, is very key as you come to grow as a writer and a creator.
Absolutely. No, that's good. I dang, like a round of applause. That was fantastic, Darnell.
Yes. And Tan, I'm sure you have plenty more advice and more specifics if you want to go into it. But those 3 points, I think, are key for getting crit and like learning how you want to edit your thing.
And not feeling immediately shut down when you receive it.
Yes, exactly. You should never take crit negatively. Okay, if someone on the SCP Wiki is talking down to you because they want to seem like the cool, aloof person, immediately F them because their opinion doesn't matter. But 99% of authors and people who offer you crit are doing so in good faith. And they're just trying to help you make it better. They don't think you're a bad writer. They're not saying you need to scrap the whole thing. Most of the people I would say you can meet on the SCP Discords, or people you know even in your community, would be happy to help you and would give good advice.
Well, and, I'd actually kind of seen that recently with some people who were wanting to create artist pages on the wiki, who didn't know how to do things like coding. And people more familiar with coding, like, just came right in and were willing to help. And so, it's true. Like, if you're willing to ask for help and you're willing to be teachable, the right people will come. You just have to, make sure that you're standing by your convictions and knowing what you're good at, but also being willing to learn. So
it's all about growth mindset. You hit it right there, being willing to learn. Every great artist, every great writer, to get good at anything, you need to be okay with failing, and you need to be okay with learning how to fail smart. every time you fail at something does not mean you should give up, does not mean the whole thing is bad. You don't need to throw the baby out with the bath. It just means, what can I learn from this, and how can I improve?
I don't like children, so.
Okay, well, different metaphor then. Pretend I inserted a different one, but learning to be okay with messing up and learning to go, what can I do better next time, will make you grow leaps and bounds, and it's also just a better mindset than like, oh no, they didn't like my first article, I'm never writing again, etc.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yes, Tan, please say some things. You're the actual experienced SCP Wiki author.
Yeah, so I agree with pretty much everything Darnell said. When it comes to crits, you have to make sure. Anything I say here is going to be sort of rephrasing of what Darnell said, because he's full of stuff.
Reinforce it.
Yeah. Make me feel vindicated.
There has to be a balance. I feel like you have to be open to crit, but you also have to have confidence in at least the on a conceptual level. I feel,
yes,
because there's crit, and then there's like open heart surgery.
Yeah. For sure.
And if you just sort of accept every criticism that comes, you're going to end up with something that you didn't mean to write.
And I will say you have an advantage here, because Tan and I both are pretty experienced writers, and we are aware of this principle. I'm not saying that other writers or authors aren't as good about this, and even we have our personal biases, like I mentioned with AS. But like generally, the long-term writers in the community, I'd say to start, are people you can mostly trust everything they say, compared to just like the average person on the Discord. And that's no knock at them or anything. Again, once you have more confidence, you can sort the good crit from the more stylistic opinion stuff. But when you're new, I would stick to like, okay, this person is an author who's been there a while, they know how things work, I can trust them concretely before you go and take crit from just any Joe Schmo.
Yeah, and this is why I would also encourage anyone, listening who is maybe kind of coming from my end of things, to get more involved with the wiki first for a while. It doesn't have to be this spooky like thing that you're like, never mind, I'm just going to close this and go watch a YouTube video later, or just hope that this gets uploaded later. Because I had never even considered that, there might be different hubs and places where people are talking about the exact specific thing that I'm interested in. And familiarizing myself more with actual writers who are writing about that one thing. Like you kind of just amalgamate the wiki into this one amorphous beast.
Right.
When you're an offsite person where you're just like, I don't know who to talk to or who to approach. And so I liked what you said, Darnell, where it's just like, yeah, well, seek out criticism from the people who are already doing what you want to do.
Yes.
And that it might sound so simple of a concept, but that never even crossed my mind. Where you're like, wait, we can do that?
Yeah, most authors are not menacing presences you can't approach. Like, maybe if you're not, like, already a name, you might not want to go pester Cactus, not because he wouldn't even be friendly enough to help you, but just as a top voted guy, he probably gets, like, 10,000 people sending him articles a day. But, like, by and large, if you go to an author, even an author you might think is, like, above you or whatever, they're just going to be like, yeah, I'd love to help. They're not going to be like, Worm, how about you get a few upvotes before you're qualified to talk to me? Or anything like that.
Or even, my experiences so far, even with some of those, authors, is that even if they aren't, readily available to speak with you, they can help direct you to other people that they work with,
Yes. They'll be like, shoot, I'm doing 15 articles right now and a 10-person collab, but here's like 3 people that can help you with the exact thing you're doing.
Exactly. Yeah. Just try and talk to people a bit. Don't get immediately discouraged if the first person you talk to isn't as responsive as you were hoping. Just kind of. Yeah, that's what I've seen as well. So it's nice to get that, I guess, reinforcement there.
Also, learn to be based. If you do happen to meet elitism, just be like, lol, okay, and then move on, because... Yeah. There's
plenty of other people who are more than willing to talk to you and more than willing to coach you, so yeah. Well, how do you guys want to take this from here? Because like
Here's
I said, I think I need to kind of ponder my orb of what you guys I think I want to take the feedback that you guys have given me. I don't want to force this out, because again, like I really want this to be an example of somebody seriously attempting to write something for the first time. And so it's like, all right, I've shared my inspirations with you guys, shared my background with you guys, shared the direction I want to take this, kind of seeing, formatting wise what you guys are thinking.
Here's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, what are you thinking?
So first off, how free are you after your thing with Toad King tonight? And I'm not saying for us, Tan's going to be asleep. That's not. I'm not talking about like the video.
Yeah, that's
like,
not.
do you have?
I was going to say that's not going to happen.
But do you have like the rest of your night free after that?
Not necessarily. I will I'll send it to our Discord chat, but at the time of our recording, it is DJ Cactus's birthday tomorrow, and I have something I need to work on.
Well,
I'll send you the audio for it. It's pretty hilarious.
I was gonna say we can meet back Monday, but we can set it for Tuesday or something then. Actually, no, Tuesday I'm way too busy. It'll have to be Wednesday.
Yeah, even if we reconvene on Wednesday, you know, I can still be communicating with you guys and come in being like, so you guys will have a general idea of like what I've accomplished since then.
I was gonna say, here's your homework for Wednesday, right? I want you to finish your description. I want you to have all or most of your addendums done. Because what I've learned is we've gotten very little writing done. Even like what you've got, I believe, was like stuff you already had written concretely. I want you to get the bulk of your writing done. I don't want you to worry, is it good enough? I don't want you to have to get crit from someone else. Finish it or get close to finishing it. Bring it back to us. We'll read it. We'll crit it. Tan will help you do all the coding to make the addendums and the quote blocks so they look like interview logs or whatever.
I think that's best because I really like I needed to have this conversation with you guys before I continue because it felt very farcical to me at that point.
And if you have questions along the way, feel free to hop in the group chat and be like, hey, what do I do with this, so on, and maybe we can bring those up next episode as well. But by and large, just get done or almost finished, then we'll read over crit, finish up on Wednesday. You can upload it Wednesday.
Yeah.
Episode will go up Saturday, about a big boom.
Yeah, I think that's good. That gives me plenty of time to just kind of like consider what's been said, finish up everything else so that I have on my agenda, give us, all a little time to, process. I can share things with you guys. But I think that this has definitely served as what I would hope most first timers do, where it's just like, got this idea, gonna share it with people, finding myself stuck here, how would you approach it from here, be receptive to that feedback, and then go do something with it. So awesome. I consider this to have been productive.
Yes. Before we lose you though, let's figure out times, because Tan's 6 hours ahead of us, and I don't get out of class till like midnight his time. So if we want to meet at 2, if that's the only way it's going to work for you and Tan, I need to know now so I can call off. I can call like call out of class that day ahead of time. Otherwise, if Tan's willing to stay up, if 6 p.m. works for you, we can just do that on Wednesday.
Yeah, I will. I'll go ahead and just kind of keep that entire day pretty open.
Okay. And what would you prefer?
I know that we had.
I prefer Tuesday, just because I'm off Wednesday.
Tuesday is physically impossible for me.
Okay.
Tuesday, I have an interview, I have class, and then I immediately have to go see that 3 hours.
No problem. Wednesday is perfectly workable as well.
Yes.
And I appreciate your guys' flexibility. Again, I knew this is a first for all of us, and a lady never forgets her first time.
Oh my god.
But sweating emoji, Darnell.
Trying to make us catch a case. Sexual harassment on DSCP? Tan, Wednesday at 8 p.m. your time or Wednesday at midnight? Midnight's preferable for me because I can go to class. Okay, then I'll call off that day. I'll let my teachers know.
Just because I am in Thursday, so...
That's fine.
Midnight.
Yeah, I really appreciate you guys being flexible and kind of having this be a 2-parter. I think that's how it's just going to be a little bit more effective for what we're trying to accomplish here instead of just, rushing.
And Anomalous will bust ass to get this done in 4 days' time, smile. Or 3 days' time, really. All right. Yeah, thank you guys for watching. We will be back with part 2. Well, it'll all be one episode for you, so I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
All right. Tentative goodbye. Next time you see this, the screen will be filled with words. That is what Jackrabbit's promising. Okay.
Bye.
Wait.
Bye. Miles.
And we're back. Wow, it's like nothing ever happened.
I closed my eyes for just a moment.
And if you close your eyes... Yes, welcome back, guys. You can see things look a little bit different now.
That's right. I'm wearing a hat now.
Wait, how do you do strike through, by the way, Tan, for the coding, so we know how to code that?
For coding, what you do, here's a tiny little tutorial hour. If you scroll down to the bottom, I'll show you how to do strike throws.
Okay.
here's text. You put 2 of these on either side.
Okay. So if this is all stricken through, let me just pop up, and then pop up. Bada bing, bada boom. Okay. Yes. So Jackrabbit.
You want to do it for each individual line there.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah, and they've also just sort of auto-corrected to M dashes there, so you might want to wait till it just is actually on a wiki.page page.
Okay. Well, that's fine. Okay.
Woo-hoo!
Yes.
Fun.
Jackrabbit, would you like to talk about your process a little bit and how it went?
Yeah, so as we said, it's very much changed since we last saw it. There's been a bit of a process.
Yeah. Hold on 1 second. Ugh. You guys can't see it, but my headphones that I have gigantic, plushy, fuzzy bunny ears on them, and I went to take off my sweatshirt, and I was just like, oh wow, I'm stuck. Okay.
Yeah. Happens to the best of us.
Just the bunny girl life. Yeah. Anyways, oh my goodness. So the process, I experienced the SCP author experience in a petri dish over the course of 3 days. Mm-hmm. In that I was. Oh my gosh. So I want to say for everybody listening, I was very, very committed to not seeking help or crit or sharing with anybody anything that I was doing. So I really wanted to try and see just how frustrating this could be to pull it off by yourself, which was really difficult because I have a lot of people who wanted to help me.
Yeah.
That's going to be the number one takeaway that I want everyone to have from this is that this is a community and you have help. And we were talking about that in our first recording session that, it's important to become a member of the wiki to kind of seek out different authors who are already doing what you want to do. And who, even if certain authors aren't available to help you, you can find others, things like that, who can kind of guide you in that correct direction. But man, did I just get so frustrated because I hated what I'd come up with. I kind of, when you first approached me about this, Darnell, that was like a million years ago, really. It was just after Yurtcast, And
I have an origin story to share about that when you finish. My villain origin story for making you do this.
No, and so I kind of initially started really trying to think about how I could help other people, right? Mm-hmm. Where I was like, well, I'm just going to come up with a really simple concept and we're going to figure out how to just very simply turn this into a basic SCP wiki article. Mm-hmm. But I was bored. You guys were bored.
I wasn't bored. Don't you dare put words in my mouth.
No. Listen. I think it's relevant to point out that just it was just not interesting. And it's okay if something again has been done before. Mm-hmm. And as we'll get into this, I did not change my anomaly at all. It's still the exact same object that we first discussed. It still did the exact same thing it was supposed to do. But I just kind of realized that if I was going to really sit down and write something that I knew the end result was something that I already hated and that people that I wanted to be interested in it weren't going to like it. It felt like just a slog. And I just I went through stages of emotions. It was just so ridiculous. I was just enraged. So enraged at this stupid plastic button. And so I guess I don't necessarily want to explain what happens in the article, but I will say that I feel like I exemplified how I was feeling about several different emotions that I was having at the time, and I wrote something that I can honestly say I'm really proud of.
And so, I think that's a big thing I want to congratulate you on and bring up as well, is I was a little pushy. I wanted you to keep going because I thought you'd feel better when you got it done. And I actually think channeling those emotions you were having and putting it into your work made it have a lot more of yourself in it rather than just a concept. It made it something you could appreciate more. Yeah. And I think that's the big thing to point out too. Oh, I'm sorry. Hang on. I promise I'm almost done.
You're fine. Go ahead and finish, Darnell. You're fine.
Okay. Is that you mentioned you didn't change the anomaly at all. What you changed was your execution, and that's the huge thing. Just like people can do something before and you can do it your own way, a lot of times people, when they want to write an SCP, they just have an idea for like a monster or an object, and that's not bad, but then they go through a similar process where they're frustrated. But when you change how you execute it, or you put more of your emotions that you can relate to, or ideas that you care about behind it, it totally changes your perspective on it, and it also makes it a more interesting piece. Even though the object's the exact same, it does the same thing. You made it into something that you're actually happy with instead of something you were not.
Yeah. And so I the only reason I was interjecting, Darnell, is because I did want to thank you. Because yes, listen here, audience, Darnell really pushed me to finish this, and that was a good thing, because I am a little bit of a perfectionist with my work, and I don't think that anything you ever make is 100% perfect. But I do believe in not sharing something that you can't at least say that you're proud of if you have the opportunity to take your time with it. But the trap with that I know a lot of authors fall into on the SCP Wiki is that you'll just never get around to actually posting something if you fall into that trap. One thing that I do also want to point out that I think is relevant to at the time of our recording, when I was thinking about how, God, I just hated the prompt that I had given myself, is that it's currently right around Christmas time. And so a lot of SCP authors who are participating in the holiday exchange were being given prompts that they didn't know what the hell to do with, and had a deadline with that as well, and so that'll be something that happens when you're taking, part in the on-site community, is sometimes you will have to have a prompt that you don't really like.
Especially in collabs. Especially in collabs. Like, even if you don't necessarily hate the collab, there will be parts of writing an article or a collab or a thing that aren't the most fun, but that doesn't mean you throw the baby out with the bath.
Exactly. Well, as we said last episode, I hate children, so I'm, that's fine. I might do that anyway.
Don't throw the something out with the something. I'll come up with another metaphor for you.
But I would love to be able to talk more about my thought process with this, but I can't continue to do that until we've...
Yeah, we'll read it. We will read it. And by we will read it, I mean you will read it. Because I think I've seen you've made a lot of video teasers for this. I can tell you're very excited about it. And I just have a feeling that you will get a lot more joy out of reading this than if Tan reads it. So go for it.
Why am I like the boring one?
You're not boring. I'm just saying, like, I have a feeling.
Tan tried to read it.
Okay.
I'll tell you what. Once we get into it, how about we let Tan read up to the end of the struck through parts, and then I'll take over. How about that?
Sure, let's do it that way. Are we ready to read it right now? I know there's like some minor coding stuff you said you'll have someone else look over before you post up, but I think otherwise, from what we checked, it was all good.
Yeah, do you want me to give context to that real quick?
Sure, go for it.
All right, real quick, I want to mention something, because I know that I've been, presenting this as just trying to go into this just as blind and green as possible. But I do have some friends within the community that I've made since joining a couple months ago. One of them is Gregory Carpin, who was one of the authors behind SCP-6500, which is currently the longest article that's on the wiki. And he and I have been working a lot together. We actually are in talks to do a podcast of our own in next year. Called Simply Creative People, where we're going to be kind of I'm going to be approaching articles from that offsite perspective, kind of with the audiovisual type of perspective, and he's going to be approaching articles from the on-site as a writer. And we're going to be kind of just pulling in people from all different sides of the community, seeing how we can collaborate more, seeing how things translate better, from if you're somebody who does better with making videos and you want to start writing, or you have somebody who's a writer and they want to see their content turned into something, like what other people offsite are doing. That's kind of what we're hoping to kind of make happen together. And so he's going to help me with some very minor coding after all this, because I just really want to polish it up before I post it. But as we're going to see, I've already had a chance to take a peek at the Google Doc. That the coding that you guys did, that's probably, it's not going to get more fancy than that, really. because I think the tone and the theme of this article is meant to be very.
And it will still be up today, even if
it
it's
is.
not by this recording, right?
Yes, yes. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of started, really posting and teasing about it, because I'm just like, well, I'm making this happen. I have appreciated that you guys gave me a little bit more time to work on it, and so I'm gonna fulfill my end of the deal, where by the end of this recording, it should be up very shortly after, and you better still go upvote it, Darnell.
I will. I'm gonna upvote it. I'm gonna leave a comment. I'm gonna post
this guy has not even read it.
Okay, that's a good point. I should probably read it before I promise I'll upvote it. What if I downvote it? I'm just like, yeah, it was a great first try, but it sucked. Just like shit.
I think I like it more as a table.
Yeah. Sorry.
If you downvoted it, at the very least, leave a comment that says sweating emoji.
No, I'm not. Don't worry.
I think it merits that.
I won't downvote it. No, I absolutely will not downvote it. All right, let's no more stalling though. Let's read this. Yeah.
Yeah, no more stalling. All right.
Absolutely.
Dan, why don't you spin us off?
Absolutely. I was about to read module rate then. I'm not used to reading that on Google Docs.
Every single excruciating detail. Yeah.
Item number, SCP, toxic positivity. So just something to note with the, when this is posted as an actual article, I presume that's toxic positivity is going to move to the main list rather than being next to the item number there.
Correct, but that's what I've decided to name it, yes.
Yeah, just so I think that's just there, so it's on the page in this case.
Yes.
Object class is not safe, it's presumed neutralized. Special containment procedures. The fragments of the SCP are to be kept in a standard evidence locker located in Site 42 Security Department. Notice from Ricer. The contents of this file are being tampered with. The file must remain preserved in its current state as it is the subject of an ongoing murder investigation. Edits are prohibited at this time.
So real quick, and literally it's fine as is coding-wise, but if you wanted to add just a tiny bit of extra, if you could get like Grigory to help you, I've seen ones where it looks like a little note at the top, like where it has a yellow or a white background. Do you know what I'm talking about, Tam?
Yeah, you can put that in like a quote box, yeah.
Yeah. That'd be neat.
That'll probably be kind of the extent of like how fancy I get. Just try and get things to pop just a little bit.
She says that, but like 3 days from now, there's going to be an ARG on the TikTok and like a complex CSS with like 8 hidden Easter eggs if you click the right letters in the sequence.
I don't know nothing about what I'm doing. What are you talking about?
So just something to know, with the italics here, the way you would code that is like this.
Oh, I did that wrong then. That's my bad.
Wow. I'm going to kill Darnell.
Why is it 2 asterisks for bold but 2 slashes for italics? I hate the wiki.
I'm sorry, that's just how it is. Description. SCP appears to be a circular white plastic button, 70.8mm, set in a black plastic base, 87.9mm. When pressed, the object emits a slightly distorted sound clip exclaiming, "That's a wonderful idea!" Subjects who interact with the object have claimed to feel a sense of renewed confidence in any idea or plan they've been considering at the time. Subjects become irrevocably convinced to follow through with said idea. Further testing utilising the SCP as a means of improving morale within the ranks of Class C individuals is currently being spearheaded by Dr. Blank Taylor. Utilising the SCP as a possible alternative to amnestics for agents suffering from psychological trauma. Oh golly, I guess that's my cue. How do you write one of these fancy things? Let's give it a try.
SCP blank appears to be in pieces. It appears to have bubbling bits of your bitch brain coating all the key cracks, Dr. Taylor.
Shit.
What's black and white and red all over, Dr. Taylor? Your magic button. Whoopsie, I think I might have heard your gurgling corpse shit the floor just now. Gross. You are making a mess all over your fancy carpet. Have some decency. You are embarrassing yourself in front of a peasant. Rude, 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 Dr. Taylor. Rude, rude, rude. Boy, I tell you, I feel all sorts of legitimized sitting here at your desk typing away. I'm a real smarty pants now, huh? Writing a fancy paper like the rest of you hotshot researchers. This means I matter now, right? 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 I'm just like Dr. Taylor. I bet they're all going to start taking me seriously around these parts now. I'm writing words, doing the real work, words, words, words. Watch this. That was a good one. Cooking with gas. We are cooking with gas now. I'm on fire. Silly me, I never thought I could be someone smart like you, Dr. Taylor. I'm just a field agent after all, only a field agent. Out there breaking my bones, bleeding myself dry, and looking the monsters in the eye, showing them my face. But you got the real tough job, don't you, Doc? You're the real motherfucking hero. Then you drag my bony ass in here once a week, pretend to listen to a single word that I say, tell me to say something nice about myself, and then it's clickety-clack, pap, pap, pap. That's a wonderful idea. That's a wonderful idea. You know, this is easier than I thought, much easier than I thought, pressing buttons and writing words. I've got a message for all you folks down there in the off-site trenches. Now's the time for action. Yeah, you know what to do. Now's the time. Do it. Write words to matter. You've been chosen. Oh, there's a banging at the door. I think they know what happened. I think they heard you begging. I think they heard me laughing. Or maybe somebody's watching me write this. I guess their session's over. Well, here they come. They're very upset with me. I can hear them calling to me from hell. They're throwing a real fit over this. Wish I could have asked you for advice on how to finish my fancy schmancy research paper, Dr. Taylor. I think I was really onto something here. I will miss our little chats. You really were the highlight of my week. Now you're just a shit-covered corpse on the floor. Your clumps of brain bits and brown hair clinging to what's left of a broken button. Was it worth it? You were right. You were fucking right. This really was a wonderful idea, and I've got another one. Want to see? And then the addendums say, delete your life's work. That's a wonderful idea, like 7
Holy
times.
shit.
That was pretty good. Just a quick question. I know this is like a minor edit, but was there supposed to be 2 ends there? Like she was glitching out a bit, or is that just a little typo?
I don't. I mean, according to Foundation internal security, we're not allowed to edit anything.
You know what? That's a good point. That's actually the best way to deflect any crit, unironically, to start your article with that. It'd be like, actually, I'm not supposed to change anything, Smile.
Actually, it's within universe that you're not allowed to criticize.
No, but like real shit, and I swear I'm not just talking you up because you're like our guest or whatever. I think this is really good, especially for a first article. It's much better than my Milk Jesus. I really like where you're going with here. I really want to see you or other people follow up with this idea. I would probably give this one like a 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. I wouldn't get too excited. The top of the scale is 13 out of 10 in this world, but no, that's pretty high. This is a good article. It's really good. No, I'm serious. You did awesome work here.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you finished and stuck with it. I think this is going to bang when it comes out.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. Yeah, I guess that's why I wanted to get a chance to read it before I could explain things further. What did you think, Tan?
I enjoyed it. It was very scary.
It goes off, right? I was getting a little bit of chills there. That's pretty good.
I very much enjoyed it. I imagine, being honest, you will get a couple of people who will be like, oh, this isn't a real SCP because it's not clinical.
There will be at least one. There will be at least one that's like, this should have been a tale instead of an article. There'll be at least one. But you know what? Another cool thing about this, I think, is like, I know you've mentioned you've watched a few channels that do like the dramatized readings, like the Exploring series and Volgan. I feel like this is a really good one for that. I feel like this is a really good one for like adding some production value and like really putting some passion into the reading. It's just super fun.
Well, thank you. I actually kind of reverse engineered my process, and I vented my feelings and recorded them, and then I sat down and wrote it out, and this is what happened.
Yes.
So thank you so much. I really appreciate that you found it scary. It
actually was. It was a little scary. I was like, oh, she went a little hard there.
Thank you. I guess, oh man, I'm exhausted, but it was really fun to kind of, take something again that was boring to me. It was frustrating to me. I didn't like it. And so I broke it and killed the person in charge of it. I was just like, there you go.
Sweating. Who would be in charge of this? I will say, I think my favorite part probably was when it first starts to transfer the bubbling bits of bitch brain coding all the cute little cracks. Aside from that line kind of going hard and having a lot of alliteration, it's just like the tonal shift there is just so immediate, but it also just like, it feels right. It doesn't feel too forced. I really like that.
Thank you. Well, and that's how I talk. Like, I'll do a lot of like just warm up like vocal exercises before I record, and so things like bubbling bits of bitch brain coating cute little cracks. I wouldn't say that's exactly the tongue twisters that I try and do.
Yeah, I'm going to the panic room in the tower.
Anomalous, extract.
It's more of a it's more of a like a like from the Anchorman, like how now brown cow type of thing. And so but yeah, thank you. I kind of I was having trouble with the description starting to feel really clunky, and so I ended up just like going ahead, and as it was feeling clunky, that's when I was like, you know what, I'm gonna start the tone shift here because I'm just so fucking over it. And just go.
Once it gets boring with one specific bit, you stop doing that bit. That's my policy.
There you go. All right. So we're just going to go through some very last minute stuff that I'm pretty sure already know by now, but I think just might be helpful for other new writers and just like officially ending the process here. So let me screen share with you for a second. When my screen loads up.
What could you be screen sharing?
Beep, boop, boop. All right. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so basically, for all of you out there who are making your article, you've got your article, you've got it critted by your friends, it's ready.
They're writing along at home like it's looking MasterChef.
Yeah. Next thing you want to do is you're going to go to the SCP and you're going to go to whatever the latest series is. So in this case, Series 7. And basically, Jackrabbit, you're going to scroll down here until you find a number that has access denied. That means it's not used yet. So then what you do is you find your number. You don't have to pick this number, but let's say 6187. You go to the bottom, edit, you go to 6187, you put your title, so toxic positivity instead of access denied. Then you click on 6187, and then this is the page that you will post to. You would do the click here, right, Tan?
Yes, you would.
Yeah, and then, but before that, you would go back to your article and you go, everywhere it's XXXX, you would double check and make sure it's 6187, or whatever number you choose.
I have a method. I have a method for this.
Just Control F, right?
I go into Notepad and just find and replace,
Yeah. You can do that on Google Doc, too. It's, where is it?
Yeah, I had done that a couple times when I was working on stuff, but it's good.
She knows how to do it. You probably know how to do this better than I do, to be honest.
No, but it's fine. We gotta just...
Yeah, here it is, under edit.
It'll save you time so you don't go crazy and bludgeon someone to death with a plastic button, you know?
So our dear friend Jackrabbit is going to get some last minute edits first before posting. It'll be up very shortly. It'll still be up days before the podcast. But then the last step, in theory...
very shortly, that this means nothing to you, the viewers.
Yes.
But in the past for you.
But I will just theoretically say as well, and I've already talked to Jackrabbit about this, she knows, but after you post your article, you will usually do an author post. That'll be something like a short blurb about what it is, or like, oh, I had so much fun writing this, or oh, I hated yada, yada, yada. Then you'd be like, images used from here. So for years, you'd be like, this image was mine. And then it would be like, thank you. And then it would be like, thank you to Tanoni, Darnell, or whoever helped you, all the people that inspired you for looking at this, blah, blah, blah. And then that's pretty much it, and you're done. You're on the wiki.
And I'll probably do some follow-up, like, out-of-character stuff for anybody who came into this episode. Oh, gosh, by the time everybody gets through it, this is going to have been a very long episode. Thanks so much for having me, guys. But I might do some follow-up stuff, just kind of, like, summarizing some of this last-minute stuff after everything, because you guys definitely helped me with just the setup and the writing process. But yeah, I know that coding can make the off-site brain go brr, you know. So,
yeah, thankfully most coding isn't too bad. It's just a matter of getting someone to teach you the first time. And a lot of it, like when you're on the page posting, you can just click the button like insert link and it does all the work for you.
Well, I'm old, so I'm from the MySpace era. That's where I learned my original coding stuff.
Wikidot's got some pretty primitive coding, so it shouldn't be too bad to learn unless you're trying to do some like insane CSS stuff. Then it gets a little wonky.
Well, again, like I was mentioning the 6500 crew, they've got like spinning magic runes on theirs, and I'm just like, no, I'm good. Like that would be neat, but.
But yeah, any last things you want to state or anything we should go over before comment readings? Question mark.
I guess the last thing that I kind of wanted to mention about it and what was helpful to my process, and I guess I wanted to just clarify because I clearly got very angry while I was writing this, is I definitely did channel some anger that I've it felt sometimes when I'm coming into on-site spaces as an off-site person, and a little bit of kind of how I'm spoken to sometimes. And I just wanted to say that, like, I really poured that out in here, but that's not an accurate representation of how I really feel about everyone. And I just wanted to thank just, just the staff has been so welcoming. You guys have been so welcoming. This was just like very much just a focused little blurb. And I don't want people to think that this is just like my entire identity is my first article on here, where it's just like, oh, this is what she stands for. It's just like, no, this is just how I was kind of feeling at the time.
No worries.
Really wanted to clarify that.
The real marker that you're on says that you hate the SCP wiki. I literally rail on it all the time. Only sometimes is it ironic.
I wanted to make sure that, like, it was understood that's absolutely the emotion in here. That's absolutely the come on over here, write words in order to matter, type of thing. But like I love everybody involved.
Poking my fingers together, looking up sadly, but not me, right?
By no means should this be taken as a manifesto.
Yeah.
Yes, whoever bludgeoned this doctor to death clearly wrote a manifesto, but I like to go method with the people I'm writing about and separate those emotions, and they are not me. It's whoever wrote this is not a representation of me. My character Jackrabbit, who is not this person either, isn't me. So yeah, I was like, just had to make sure that was clear.
Yeah, this is actually
everyone's gonna.
John Hare is the name of this character.
This is the mysterious Jackalope.
Jackalope?
The Jackalope.
That's actually pretty dope. Very curious,
Agent
though.
Bigfoot.
But no, I'm glad we were able to help. Hopefully, we weren't too bad about all that stuff you mentioned. I had a lot of fun having you on. I think this was a great experience.
It was a lot of fun. I'm thank you guys. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Oh wait, did I ever tell my origin story for bringing you on?
You didn't. Let's hear
it. Don't hate me for this. So
it's okay.
So we were watching the Yearcast, and I had already thought about having you on. I think I'd brought it up to Tam before because I was like, wow, Jackrabbit seems pretty cool. Maybe we should get her on. I see she's starting to blow up a bit in the community. She makes some neat stuff. That'd be fun. And we were like, yeah, maybe. But it was we had a lot of guests on. We were like, we'll look into the future. So we're watching Yearcast, and we're like, wow, she's honestly awesome. And I'm like, I hope they make her write an article like they made me. But not only did they not make you write an article, but everyone was like, I'm going to write articles about your character for you. And I was like, fuck this. And I immediately, when it ended, I messaged you. I'm like, we got to get her on. There's no way. Yeah, well, not really. I didn't want you to suffer, but I was like, it was both a mix of I wanted to see what you were capable of, but there was also a little bit of they're not going to do this to me and let her get away with it. Hell no. And honestly, you were just so awesome about the whole process. It was so much fun. We did it a very different way too. I didn't want you to ever feel pressured. We were like, if it gets too much, we don't have to finish it. So on and so forth.
To be fair, Darnell whines about this, but the original plan that he had with Roundhouse was to do that to me, and he was fine with it then.
Because you do that for 10 years. You just write things in an hour. That's your bit.
No, I appreciate it, Darnell. I'm serious, because I'm definitely here to hype people up and be supportive and be like, yeah, if you want to use me as a character, and I've always tell people, I'm just like, if you're experiencing writer's block, write me into your story and kick my ass if that helps you get through it. People are already doing that, apparently someone's about to post a 6,000 word article where I apparently am viscera and blood and gore on the snow, and I'm just like, hell yeah, Merry Christmas to me, I love it.
Marcel's great. I'm excited to see his stuff.
Yeah, and, but so yeah, I don't know. I try and be super supportive if people want to use me, if it helps them think. But nobody's really pushed me to do something like this yet, And so yeah, there were moments where I was not having a lot of fun, but I'm so glad I did it. And you were right. You were right when I'll tell people behind the scenes, I really did almost throw in the towel, and it just. Both these guys were so nice to me and understanding, and Darnell really, really encouraged me, just don't give up, and I didn't, and I really like what I came up with. So yeah, thank you for your Joker origin story. That is now mine.
No problem. I can't wait to be credited when you win the 7,000 contest.
Exactly. Yes.
No, but for
Anyways,
real, I loved this. I hope to see you write more. Even if you don't, that's fine. The stuff you already make is pretty awesome. But like seriously, I'm just so excited for you and so happy that you got this done. It was a good time all around. I think we can call this one a huge W for the wiki.
A huge W for the wiki. All right.
But now it's time to read some YouTube comments, which is everybody's favorite thing,
Those are
right?
always fun. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Okay, so first from Lixurus, we have, happy birthday transcript happened as I was going to my sister's house for her baby's first birthday. No way this is a coincidence. Also, this means 1 year anniversary of me being an uncle. I feel so old. Yeah, I know that.
Just for context, Jack, I don't know if you saw the last episode, we read 6670, the mama one.
Yes, I listened to that like right before I came on your episode. I was wondering if that was going to be what we were going to talk about.
Yes, these are all comments from that video, so
Fantastic,
apologies.
Yes.
I love the idea, like, you have to specify, like, what if we had a feature, we just go to a random video and read the comments from that?
What does TIR mean?
Today I realized.
Oh. Force 2 Reckon says, today I realized Darnell is censoring his name and it's actual to Damnell. Having listened to this one, I feel a little worse for poo-pooing the Ekranak SCP we read on our show. Yeah, you should. Which, since I already felt terrible after thinking about it, means I'm going to go die now. No, really, I like dying. It helps me de-stress. This is a lie. I've never died. Made up password for myself. I'm not singing that.
Okay.
That was quite a roller coaster of a comment.
You can't make up passwords. You can lie.
Yeah.
That's what you can do. You can lie.
Actually,
you can't make a password.
Jackrabbit, what's our password for this video?
How can they prove they watched it to this point?
How can they prove they watched it up to this point? They let's see. They have to say we are cooking with gas now. I am on fire.
Brilliant.
Hell yes.
Okay, I just had a thought.
The whole thing.
You should still keep the title Toxic Positivity, but alternate title Button Mashing. Smile?
Yeah, right?
They should put the character in the fighting game, and that's like their signature move is the button smash! Oh, that's so good. Yeah. Comedy Man Kelp says, this happened to my buddy Eric. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear about that. Good Day says, don't worry, Darnell, we found the Stonefish Silva Gunnar article after Aiko asked Stonefish for the link. It was Circus Mummer Mix 5 Nights at Freddy's, by the way. Edit, anomalous...
Being perfectly honest, I have no idea what you're referring to anymore. It's been
Stonefish said he worked with Silva Gunnar, and like Good Day and Aiko's friend group like freaked out because Landy's obsessed with Silva Gunnar, so they went and figured out which one he did. Good Day says, edit, Anomalous, make the logo do a cool little animated spin. That'd be cool. Anomalous only do that if you have time. You have 2 days to edit this. Less than 2 days. I'm so sorry, Anomalous. Lucas Ferretti says, the delay is very and then he cuts off.
I don't know what delay is this, Lucas?
I think he meant like the delay with Ekranek because he was.
That's right. Yeah, you guys were like time traveling the most you'd ever had to time travel before in the Philippines. Yeah.
Yeah. So all his like talking came in. We actually found out it wasn't even internet problems. He had it on push to talk, and he kept letting the button go earlier, not pushing it. That's what was happening. I was like, "Why did you have it on push to talk?" He's like, "Oh, sorry." So probably would have been fine if it wasn't for that, which is actually hilarious.
Well, that's how you get some good Corgo Spousu artwork.
Hell yes. I love Corgo. Corgo's my favorite.
Hello, I'm here. I know. That was one of the things that really helped me get through this whole process. I'm like, you've got to finish this, Jackie, so that way you can get Corgo artwork from your.
Corgo is going to make artwork. It's going to be great.
As you two have said that, Corgo has just like tweeted me some art of me.
So. Can you put that in the group chat and I'll look at it in a sec, Tan?
Absolutely. Well, maybe after we finished with the podcast.
Thought Experiments and Other Stuff says
we're doing a podcast.
Indeed. Thought Experiments and Other Stuff says where the next Cactus Verse episode, boys.
It's nowhere.
Never. Actually, we had a weird thing planned for 100, but like none of the people I was collaborating with I have heard much from, so we might have to like pivot for episode 100. I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. What do you think, Tan? Yeah.
Well, all I'll say is I'm sure it'll be an episode to die for.
We're gonna kill off one of the former guests. Like that's the tease we trail with. Is like someone will die by the end of this video.
It'll be like Danganronpa.
The twist will be that the person who dies is the viewer at the end. We'll play the Germa thing. What was it?
I volunteer as tribute. I'm so tired.
No, Jackrabbit, no!
For the SCP event of the century, we have gotten 16 community figures together for a murder game.
Yeah.
Your turn to die. I didn't do it, Wolf. It wasn't me, Meow.
Oh my gosh. Maybe it's just a bunch of really exhausted SCP authors and we're all fighting for the right to be the person who gets to die. Everybody else has to survive. One of us actually gets to just leave this mortal plane for good.
Finally.
Like I said, I went through a whole roller coaster of emotions.
King T-Rex...
Go on.
King T-Rex 101 says, as I am commenting, I am currently playing COD Black Ops Cold War Zombies. What an awkward name. While listening to two idiots and their captured hostage Ekranak read a fucked up SCP. I do this with almost all your videos. This sounds like a Kiriyoshi Kage bit. I will put up Cold War, play zombies, and listen to you in the Exploring series videos while doing so. I love your guys' content, so keep up the good work. Recommendation? SCP... SCP-3989, The Bone Orchard. I love that name. By Hammer Maiden. Same person who wrote 2000. I love the name Bone Orchard. Put that on the list, Tanhoney. Just so the viewers know, we never read the list, by the way. But it's there. Shithalia says...
Once we start with this constant stream of guest celebrities, maybe I'll look at your little list.
What's with informing clout from people? Shithalia says, hi from the Philippines! Edit, why did I decide to listen to this at 3 a.m.? Hey, you should have been calling Freddy Fazbear. I am now coming to your house. Calling DSCP at 3 a.m., prank? Calling Jackrabbit at 3 a.m.? Oh my god. Edit 2, we can make an SCP out of this. All of us ever since SCP became popular. True. Have you ever had that, Jackrabbit, where like you thought of an idea and you're like, this could be an SCP?
No. No.
Oh.
That was like my most difficult thing where I was just like, no, like all the content on the wiki is already like interesting enough. I was just like, nah, my brain had never really gone there, but yeah, I don't know.
It's okay. The metamorphosis will begin shortly. Prepare.
Yeah, right. I know. I'm staring out the window right now at like a weird like crack in my neighbor's wall, and I'm like, oh, there you go. There's an SCP. There it is. I see it. Maybe a child's gonna go ma from within it.
Lan says,
I loved your baby voice, by the way, Tanhoney. Just your fantastic.
That was pretty
like
good.
A up baby.
Mama, please.
Well, especially because I could tell you were trying to do an American accent with the baby voice, and I'm like, wow, he is good.
Oh lordy. Lan says,
American Tanhoney is the most cursed thing on this podcast.
You already sound American. You're insane. Okay, after I did a podcast with some...
I didn't mean to insult your country. I'm sorry.
No, you already sound mostly American. I my other podcast I did with a guy from London, he sounded fucking British. I had to ask him to repeat himself a couple times.
No, he sounded Southern British.
He sounded British as people think British sound. You just sound like an American to me.
Like a human.
Like a human. No! Well, yeah, British people aren't people, so fair. Lan says, interesting episode. I liked this when it came out originally, but having an audio format made it so much better. Great job to Ekranak. As for recommendations, I'd really like to see you guys do a Harbinger episode, or even multiple episodes, like what you did with the Anti-Memetics series. Looking forward to next week's episode with Jackrabbit, if the rumors are true.
They're not.
Yeah?
They were true. And I suffered greatly. I died for the wiki's sins.
This is like an Elvis impersonator. This is a Jackrabbit impersonator we hired for the podcast.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, this is actually Jack Sabbath. Legally, we can't say it's Jackrabbit.
Jack Sabbath.
Brandon Hamilton, our thumbnail guy, says, the chia seeds. They aren't seeds. Stop them from spreading. Don't eat the seeds. Don't eat the seeds. And I don't know what that means.
Hamilton's good for it.
Yeah. Andre left some timestamps for all the little bits, so thank you, Andre. I'm getting tired of reading comments now. I don't know how much more I can take.
That's all right. It's been a long process.
Should we just end this off? Okay, yeah, passing the torch.
A Bush from the island of Borneo says, each series is its iconic and classic SCPs, and I think S6670 is going to be one for Series 7.
I agree. Why are you laughing?
Because I don't know, SCP. As for recommendations, you should read SCP 56657. Nikki knows. SCP 6830, The Irish Problem. I shouldn't have started reading up this one. And SCP 6101, the most powerful SCP. 6101 is obscenely short. You can probably read it right now without going too far over the runtime. I don't know about that.
Yeah, just read it during the comment reading, Forehead.
I mean, like, usually, I've read it, and I usually would be right, but we are, like, an hour over the runtime already.
Yeah, okay, so the first video was about an hour and a half. This one's now 40 minutes. So it's not as long as the cactus one yet, but it's very close.
Also,
oh my gosh. If you ever get both of us on an episode together, like, it would be like 6 hours.
10-hour charity stream where just you two talk while Tan and I play.
There you go. Yes, just
Tan and I will play stick figure fighting while you guys talk. It'll be great.
Also, want to see a magic trick? The next thing you're going to say is, JTKC says. The comment from JTKC reads, Drat, I've broken my first comment streak. Shakes fist at the sky. You win this time, Anomalous. Wow, I was surprised to see you guys so quick to the new hot SCP 6670. For good reason. Because it made me audibly ooh at work. Maybe I'm just too used to you guys catching up with the previous series. I was a bit annoyed by my Acronex mic at first. It went surprisingly well when he read the line, so I guess it all works out in the end.
I love how you're reading him like he's the most like pretentious guy of all time, and he's one of our regular viewers who we see all the time.
I'm sorry, JT. I'm definitely going to need this, because end of month is really busy for me.
He needed this.
But at least I have the last week of December off, so have a good one, Tan and Darmel.
Aw, thank you.
Darmel.
Wait, he called me Darmel! What the fuck? I'm not Darmel!
He spelled Tan right, that's weird.
People used to call me Dumb Nell. One guy called me Daddy Nell, but we don't talk about that.
Oh my
We
goodness.
put a stop to that.
Yeah.
Nolan Tenholder says, SCP-6670 is probably the best horror content I've read all year. So glad you guys are looking into it.
This guy, I've seen him around on Twitter everywhere recently. He's always
it's a badass name.
Yeah, Nolan Tenholder. That's definitely like the name of like a guy on the B Shonen like Evil Council in a shonen anime. He's like,
Wields like 10 guns.
Hi, Nolan.
Yeah.
He's super sweet. Yeah, he's always really super sweet and positive. So hi, Nolan.
Yes.
Monarch says, this SCP has to be someone's fetish.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
SCP is dealing with family issues.
No.
I love how we followed up the wholesome comment with this.
Here's what I'm gonna say, Monarch, and I'm sorry to roast you a little bit, but anytime someone's first comment is like, "This has to be someone's fetish," or "Wait till R34 gets this," I'm like, "You have a porn-addled brain. Please go outside." That's my first thought.
SCPs dealing with family issues tend to be some of my favorites, like 5935, or partly. My recommendations this week is SCP-6624, Il Maestro del Rancor. I have to be honest, I will probably get to that at some point as well, because I haven't read it yet and I really want to.
Ooh.
So good. It's so good. It's so good. Oh, man.
Also,
I can't believe Jackrabbit's a better SCP fan than you, Tan. How about step it up?
That's a metaphysician one, and it's so good. Oh my gosh. Absolutely amazing.
We should get
also,
Meta on now that he's not
on
banned
an
anymore. That would be good.
Yeah, we'll see. That makes me the third to be inspired to write an SCP within the last 2 weeks, to be honest. I don't know if it'll ever be done, but if it ever does get done, I'll link in a Discord server.
Why'd you make him so scary? I'm from the Muncie section of Indiana, where the villas are.
Raul Alves says, good to know that such a tragic article was inspired in some form by the Scrimblow catalog. Nice! Made me sad in a good way.
This is exactly how I imagine Raul sounding.
SCP and Tail recommendation? SCP-835, expunge data released. And keeping it chill with your homies down at the SCP Foundation.
Thank you, Raul. I always am happy to see you in our comments. And I love your new profile picture of, like, Billy losing it.
Corgo says, check my balls.
Sorry.
Oh my lord. Jesus.
Time to check my walls. Haha, sad face. The technical difficulties really played into the whole atmosphere of the article. So true, bestie. Can't wait for next episode already. Woo! P.S. Can we have more duck? Anomalous, I beg, Anomalous, put the duck on screen.
Dude, Anomalous has 1 day to edit this. And his time zone's different.
Thank you, Anomalous. I appreciate you.
Put the duck on screen. Quaker Button Notes 128 says, gonna have to skip this one. Sorry, fellas. Edit.
Aww.
Never mind. Andrew just posted timestamps on the server. Guess I'll just skip like 40 minutes of the episode. What did you have to skip?
Because I assumed the content was like too dark for them, which is fine.
Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, Tan! How dare you! Shits on Tan cereal.
Sword of Glass says, Ekro here. Awesome episode. Thank you very much. Oh, wait, I saw the word sword and I started doing night voices. Is that correct? Ekro here. Awesome episodes. Thank you very much for having me up. Wait, I can do it more accurate.
Ekro here.
Stop! Fuck off! Leave him alone! He came on our podcast.
Thank you very much for having me on. Real sorry for the mic.
Jackrabbit, I swear to God this is in good fun and we're not the worst people of all time. Please.
Oh, I look forward to seeing how you guys roast me.
No, we're not. We love Ekro.
It makes me feel like, you know, I'm cooking with gas now, you know?
I'm worried you're gonna come out of this and you're gonna DM me like, I can't believe you guys. I'm exposing you.
No.
You're gonna come after me with the fucking button.
Yeah. Please don't bash my bitch brain out with the button, please.
It's coating all the cute cracks, Darnell.
No, I don't have any cute cracks. My brain is incredibly smooth.
Yes, we have gone to that. No, I can't make it. I can't do an Anomalous like that.
You have to make him sound like the old man from Squid Game, remember?
Well, I was like picturing his like little persona, I think. And in my head, it sounds like, yes, we have gone to that article.
I just assumed like Chopin from...
Very compelling read.
Have you ever played XD Gale of Darkness, the Pokemon GameCube game?
I have.
Do you remember? Do you remember? Like, then you would know, like Chopin, like the little scientist in the Groudon mech. Yeah, that's anomalous.
So, Gorifina's Emil has a novel for us.
Oh shit!
I'm going to do it. Well, we're long enough for it. I might as well read the whole thing. So today we read this SCP. This is going to be interesting. Edit 1. Yeah, this was horrifying. I'm going to have a new recurring nightmare. I even had to skip some parts. Good job, Ekronak. I look forward to more of your articles. Edit 2. I'm going to recommend some positive stuff for once, due to the sheer horror this skip was. We'll read all of them. SCP-4043, Gaia. SCP-4909, Someone to Watch Over Us. SCP-6001, Avalon. SCP-682-CU.
What's -CU? What international is that?
Maybe we'll see. But it's not international. Well, maybe one day we'll find out.
Oh.
The prime example of what not to do. Edit 3. I know I should be talking about something else, but seriously, I still cannot get over how horrifying the SCP was. I'm studying medicine-related shit, and yet I could not write body horror anywhere as disturbing. Edit 4. I will post my guesses over what episode 100 may be. First option, the Darnell episode, in which we not only read his articles published so far, but he also talks more about the Wiki in general, his writing process.
His one article posted. Well, I guess I have the meme article because Nicolini credited me, but I only have the one.
Second option, the Tanhoney episode, in which we read his 2001 proposals.
That might be good if our other plan falls through, and we could all just roast you the whole time.
Or more likely, just the Black Moon or Dead Men. Third option, the Group of Interest episode. This has become more and more Buzz Lightyear as I've read this. The Group of Interest episode. By far the least likely, but it is option 10 and Darn would read the most forgotten side of the wiki, the GOI formats, which need much more love. P.S. No duck today. Anomalous removed the duck from the...
You're off the hook, Anomalous. Guare saved you.
Anomalous, go back to when you edited the duck in and please edit it back out.
Alright, well, it's been a ball, y'all, but the clock on the wall turned out to be the winner after all.
Is it the longest episode gone now?
No.
Is it the longest?
Hold on.
Fuck.
Let me check. Hold on. Alright, it's been 40... Let me go back. So it's 49 and a half minutes right now. I can't tell how long the first part is because I'd have to open it and it would take forever to load. And it might mess up the current recording, but I believe that one was an hour and a half.
And then it'll be the longest episode.
Yeah. But let me check real quick while I'm on our YouTube. I will discovering SCP cactus, and then maybe it'll pop up. Okay, so
did I defeat him in something else too? Wow.
let me
Very
check.
on brand for me.
I have to find the 1730 one we did with him. See, every time I just get other YouTubers' videos, this makes the struggle is real. Okay, view full playlist of discovering SCP. Okay, this is taking a while to load. Did you know we're almost at 100 videos, Tan? For discovering SCP?
I thought we'd be at 100 Oh.
Yeah, we're way over 100.
We've been talking
April
about
Space
episode
alone's like
100,
160.
We've been talking about episode 100 so much this episode, of course I know.
Hang on, I gotta find 1730, part 3.
Your time. I want to.
Oh, it is longer! That one was only 2 hours, 13 minutes. This one's like 220.
What a loser. Loser.
Get fucking owned, Cactus!
Yeah.
That's what you get for not responding to my DMs, Cactus!
That's what you get.
Cactus who? More like Fart Kiss.
Am I right, guys?
Hell yeah! Well, thank you,
Hell yeah.
Jackal,
Never
for
last a
finally
second in
taking
the
a...
DC universe.
Wait, Tan, no, the bit! Tan came up with the most powerful bit that I will now be referencing in future videos that no one will understand.
You would be there like fucking Endgame, and you'd be trying to write an SCP on the battlefield, and Black Panther would punch his head off.
What an idiot.
It's not even DC.
And then Batman would be like, oh, should have had more money, idiot. And then he'd piss on his corpse.
And the Flash would like floss dance.
Flash dance.
I love the one you did with Wonder Woman and Tom Holland. That one still gets me.
But I think we've run out of content.
Yeah, okay, no, we're done. Sorry, Jackrabbit. We've just kind of been stringing you along. I apologize. Thank you one last time.
I love you guys so much. I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. Bye.
Bye.